Thank you. And today's just been a really good day. It was really surreal to see the news capture everything that's going on with Milton, and then to step outside this morning and overlook, obviously, what New York has to offer us, and then more importantly, the people in the room. I saw some of you last night, but as I saw you gather to get into United Nations, almost 52 years old, it just was super awe-inspiring to see you there. I want to take a moment. Carol recognized me, and I came to know GlobalMindED about 3 years ago, but I want to take a moment to recognize our other volunteers and board members that are in the room that has been planning this year two situation. So I know if you're a board member or you volunteered today, if you could just take a moment, put your forks down, and stand up, let us give you a hand. That's great. And Ken Epps, who is our chairman of the board, can't be here today, but a lot of what I'll deliver as far as greetings will be on his behalf as well. And like I said, it's an honor to stand before you, not only our college presidents that's shaping the next generation. I talked to a few of you all and said we need to step up our game some because I'm believing in the next generation. To our students whose potential would drive our future. We're dependent on you, not just to make it through your 2, 3, 4 year, 6-year, 8-year education, but to also make sure that we got a future for the next generation after you. Our industry leaders and innovators, you are what we believe in as far as tomorrow's economy. What you're doing in your private industry and what you're thinking about for the future, whether it's AI technology, environmental sustainability, keep doing what you're doing because it takes all of us to make sure we get through this. And then of course our funders, and you heard 3 amazing women on the panel before us. We believe in you because you make our vision possible, right? We need investments to bring forward our ideas and make sure we can execute it. So we're gathering today to talk about how brave solutions will fuel our economic future. And really this is important because we want to make sure that as we talk about this economic future, that all of us are included. I work for an organization now that we include inclusive, sustainable, and competitive economy, but GlobalMindED is doing it and has been a voice for almost 11 years now, right, Carol? We celebrated 10 last year. And our goal is to make sure that it's equity for all, and we're infusing a talent, a diverse pipeline that can make sure that our economic future is in line with what we need to do. And Liz, you're not eating? I'm trying to wait till Carol gets her food, so I'll keep talking. You're good? Okay, because you're up next. Let me talk a little bit to our students here today, and what I'd like to tell you is that your potential is limitless. In today's rapidly changing world, your unique perspectives are not only valuable, but they're necessary. Like this generation that I'm calling within myself, we're still contributing, but your ideas are limitless. I am so encouraged, and the reason why I still have hope, not only you're a global talent pool, you have the skills that we need, and more importantly, we would like for you to make the connections that you'll use in the future. So today, if you have not gotten at least 15 different people that you can put in your network, then you got a C today. And while a C passes you, a D will potentially fail you, and you got to retake that class. And I'm speaking from experience, having done that before. But more importantly, I want you to get connections because your network will be your net worth. Don't forget that, right? Your network that you establish today, 15 more today and 15 more tomorrow, and the years to come will help you. We're committed at GlobalMindED to helping you do that, not only through mentorship, through conversations, and our main conference that will be in June, you'll see more students there. We have over 55 colleges here. We want all 50 in Denver, Colorado between June 16th and June 18th to help us carry forward this message and more importantly, the mission. To our college presidents that are here today, first of all, thank you for your service, right? After doing 31 years at PepsiCo, I thought I could just go and jump into something else. I interviewed for a college president role. I was like, no, they can have that. I'm not working that hard, but what you're doing is amazing, and you are the engine that continues to fuel our economy. But I want you to work with us and evolve alongside not only the industries, adapt to the new technology, and then most importantly, keep our students in the center of everything we do, every single decision we make. So when we make decisions on whether AI can be infused in our education and if they can use that for testing and scoring, also know that we felt the same way about that IBM computers in the past. So if we put the students in the center of that, because we're teaching the kids now in kindergarten to realize AI. So by the time they get to our colleges and your presidents and deans that are in the room, they're already robustly and ready to make sure we infuse that. So let's not stunt their growth at all. The other piece to our industry leaders, and having spent 31 years at PepsiCo, I still feel like I'm talking to myself because I know that the key to creating pathways from education to employment is what we need. So working more closely with our education institutions, our funders and founders to make sure that we're doing the right thing to bring our students in and get the next skills for our students that are not only employable, but also equipping them with the things they need so they can start and be ready. And then the last piece is I'll talk to our funders. Thank you for believing in brave solutions, right? That ROI and risk averse, my kids tell you that I have scared money. I have not been able to take that risk averse. So what I always like to compliment is our funders and people that take a risk on new solutions and ideas. Thank you for doing that, because you know that words may fuel change, but it takes investments to actually get things going on, and that's what you're doing to make sure that our brave solutions that we're talking about today, getting more women funders, getting our education system right, those are the things that we need to do. And since I don't have a panel up here, but we wanted to make sure we have call to action, I'll speak to myself, and here's what I'll ask you to do as far as a call of action. For our students, embrace learning for every opportunity. Seek mentors who can guide you through your journey. Really jealous, Dr. Lynn has a mentee in the room, and I was just thinking of her, that what an amazing opportunity to be that close to someone so special. But be brave enough to ask for help, and then bold enough to offer your unique insights, right? Brave enough to ask for help, and then bold enough to offer your insights. Something I didn't do early on, I'm doing it now, but I'd like for you to start that so you can be 10, 15 years ahead of me. And then to our college presidents, continue to evolve your education systems, work alongside our industry leaders to make sure that the people you're infusing with education, they can actually go out and work or go out and be entrepreneurs. Those are the things that we like for our college presidents to do. Our industry leaders, and this is when I'll talk to myself as well, expand opportunities for internships, apprenticeships, mentorships, to make sure that when they are coming out and they're ready to go do the real work, not words, but also action, that they have a place to go do it. And if they don't have a place to go do it, we have them enough mindset for them to go out and create a space for them to do it. Our funders, if you can continue to prioritize funding around education and places like GlobalMindED that's doing the extra work for our students to be able to be great investments for our future and deliver on these brave solutions we're talking about today. And then together, I want to make sure we continue to collaborate, right? Have great, brave conversations, work across borders, work across sectors, because quite honestly, it's a global economy and it seems small, especially coming into the surreal notion around the UN that we're all interconnected. So if we can do this together, they say a lot of times, and there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's my call to action to you. Let's do this thing together. Thank you. Okay, and I'll bring up our fireside chat. I'm excited about this one. You get to meet Liz up close and personal. And then Carol, who is our founder and not only a publisher in her own right, doing great things with Lifebound. If you haven't heard of that organization, I encourage you to look that up. But more importantly, we're going to listen to them on Brave Solutions. And then Liz also has a treat with her book that she'll be able to sign and give to everyone else. All right? Stage is yours, Carol. Thank you.
So when you're planning these conferences in times of things like COVID, different things are happening. So Wendy, who was going to be interviewing Liz, had a similar kind of a conflict. Wendy is also on our board. She's the CEO of the SHRM Foundation. They just last week announced that they are taking over the former PricewaterhouseCoopers CEO Action Pledge. So you all may remember there were first 750 companies, and it turned into 2,500 companies signed an action pledge, all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And since those words have come under fire, as we all know recently, some of that's in flux. But out of those 2,500 CEOs, there's a lot of women and people of color in those jobs who very much care about inclusive leadership. And there's a lot of allies who are wonderful who also care about that. So we're really delighted that this June, we're going to be working with SHRM to feature a lot of those CEOs and their companies at our conference to open up more pathways to those internships and jobs and connections to our college leaders and directly to our students. So if Wendy were here, she'd be sharing that. And before Liz and I come up, we just want to give you all at least 5 or 6 minutes at your tables to meet each other, introduce yourselves, have a little bit of collegial time, because I know we had chat time back there, but I want to make sure everyone knows at your table the different people. We tried to intentionally have a mix of students and people who you didn't come with so that you can really have broader networks. In the front, it's more the speakers, but at all the other tables, let's just take 5 minutes and everybody go around and say what your name is, where you're from, and we'll do a quick intro, and then Liz and I will do a fireside chat, and you'll learn firsthand what it's like for somebody who was able to beat the odds and grow $1 billion business. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, everybody, if you didn't make it around your entire table, we're going to have some other times to be able to get to know everybody else. So keep track of where you left off. All right.
I work with 3 families.
Thank those women for that.
All right. So we are in for a treat. Okay, we're going to make sure we got everybody, and we'll make sure we've got built-in time for networking later. So for whoever did not get to finish at the tables, we're going to have time to get to know everybody before we leave today. So we know that's a priority. So I am thrilled to have Liz here. Liz was one of the winners last June of our Inclusive Leader Awards. GlobalMindED has these incredible awards across 15 sectors every year. And last year, you're going to meet Sam Elaine soon, but Carla Harris was one of our winners. She was the fireside chat with James Rhee last year, and he was one of the Inclusive Leader Award winners. Janet Salazar was one of those winners like 5 years ago. Some incredible people. And Liz got one of those awards this year, and then we really got to know her, and we realized, oh my gosh, there's so many great things that we can do with someone like Liz. And so that's why we brought her here today. And she is just a gem. And I will say, I'm a woman who started a business. I was 17 years in corporate America, and I didn't feel that anything I did as an executive in corporate America prepared me to start a business successfly. I will just say that. And I think I've got a lot of grit and stamina and whatever, and it just didn't matter. There were a lot of hidden rules, and I would have really benefited from knowing Liz, and also she has a book that she has generously donated to each of you today. So during the reception later, she's going to be doing book signing, but everyone is going to leave with this book. So if you're out of college and which is enormously, this is one of the things we like about Liz is, GlobalMindED is about generous leadership. Liz is one of those people. And I will say I was an executive in college publishing, and we used to have entrepreneurship authors who had never been out of academia. And I would think to myself, now how does that work if you have a book on entrepreneurship, but maybe you haven't started a business yourself? Well, this is another thread of Liz, is that she went out, she's done this, and we're gonna really knit together today some of the ways in which students and college leaders have to be entrepreneurial, because these are the kinds of qualities during very challenging times that we all need to have. So as lunch is being served, we're going to be diving into these questions. So Liz, thank you for being here, and we're excited that she's spending the whole afternoon with us, and everyone is gonna leave at 5:30 feeling like they know Liz, as well as a lot of other, I hope, new friends and connections. So.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, for that beautiful introduction. And thank you all so much for being here. I'm so excited to meet all of you. And yes, I mean, we're all committed to the cause. I was fortunate to meet Carol a couple of years ago and loved what she had done with GlobalMindED, because her mission was very much the same as my foundation's mission, which is to achieve equality for all. Right? I was actually one of the fortunate ones. I had been given an education, undergrad and grad school, and I saw not everyone had that good fortune, and they needed help. And I did along the way see issues as a woman, and of course, between being people who are women, people who are from marginalized and diverse populations, people who have the intersectionality, how do they have a chance without our help and support? And the fact that that's what Carol was dedicated to doing, that she's for me. And so I love what you're all doing. I love the cause. And with that, sorry, I'll turn it back to you, but I just wanted to commend Carol and all of you for what you do.
And I'm just going to prop up. We're just going to pretend like we're on the Oprah show here with our own little GlobalMindED show. And let's start with the big picture first. We have a lot of college presidents, provosts, deans, faculty in the room who work and influence the future of the students that they serve. As educational leaders, why do they need entrepreneurial skills?
Right. And by the way, from listening to the people who are here today, and I can see so many of you have them, and I commend you for that, because a lot of people in higher education don't, and sometimes it's, whatever. Sometimes it's the faculty, quite honestly, and I see it. And my experience with higher education is I went to Trinity College undergrad, and then I went to NYU Business School. And I've been on the board of Trinity College for the last 8 years. So and I'm on the board of NYU Business School. But I saw it's a challenge. So first of all, what you're all doing, the leading universities, colleges, and groups of universities, wow, kudos to you, because it's the hardest job out there. Much harder than being an entrepreneur. So I see the challenges, but I also see what we need to do in higher education. It's not the same as it was. We need to pivot, and we need to be entrepreneurial thinkers. And so many of you are, I'm seeing it, but as I said, not everybody is, and I saw it as a board member. Sometimes it's the faculty that's resisting, and we've got to get the faculty on board. We've got to get the cabinet on board if they're not. And of course, the students are the ones who generally understand it the best, so we need to be talking to them. So one of the things I did as an entrepreneur, and I think it was really how we were able to take our company from an NYU Business School dorm room with me and my partner to a billion-dollar company, is getting the input of our clients and our employees. And so same thing here. I mean, certainly getting the input and responding to what you see from your students, the clients, and their parents is one piece of it. And then, of course, your employees, your faculty, administration, and then acting on it and coming up with solutions that they may not have, that they may not be giving you. Certainly, if they're giving you good solutions, great, respond. But if not, anticipate their needs before they know they have them, and then persuade them, because sometimes you know better and they don't know. And so, I did it in a number of ways with my company, but it was all about that and pivoting and changing. And like, for example, at Trinity, we've just established a center for entrepreneurship. And it's been a big challenge at a liberal arts institution with very traditional roots. Over 200 years, they want to stick with the liberal arts. But we've had a very entrepreneurial president that I was just talking about, Joanne Berger-Sweeney, for the last almost 11 years. She's our first woman president. She's our first Black president. And she's been fabulous. And she's helped us get this into place, and we're still working on it because our students need these skills. Also, another entrepreneurial idea or another innovative idea is we see the issues we're all having with the protests, right? The students. It's always been that way, and I know we have these groups of students. Whatever, we have the groups of different affinity groups, but I've always been a huge believer in not just this affinity group, that affinity group, this group, but putting them together, requiring them to mix. Whether it's at events, at the Hillel House, we've had our Palestinian students come and attend an event, and at a meal at Mather, our dining hall, forced integration of people who would not normally integrate. I mean, things like that, which are novel ideas, because a lot of schools aren't doing them. I know Dartmouth has done a fabulous job with, since October 7th, with getting, the different groups, the Israel, and Palestinians on the same side. But we need to do more of that.
And I'll say, Liz,
Yeah.
that at GlobalMindED we say that is working with unusual suspects and uncommon collaborators.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who are the people you don't know that you actually need to be working with?
Right.
And one of the things in Liz's journey that I do know, because we did something for a startup week a few weeks ago, is she could see real opportunities where other people could not. And I think that's one of the things right now is when we say who have we always been working with and who are the more innovative and different kinds of thinking people that we actually need to have at the table, that's who you would hire for your business. So that's going to kind of lead into my next question here, which is shifting from college leaders. Why do undergrads today need entrepreneurial skills to succeed in the world of AI and emerging tech, even if they're not going to start a business? And the way that you started and shaped and sort of saw the future, share a little bit about the specifics of that, Liz, because I think that is something that every student in this room can relate to in your lived experience.
Sure. Well, just personally, and the reason I did what I did is I was fortunate to get to live in Portugal when I was young, and then when I was 8 and 9, and then when I was 10, I moved to Toronto. So by the time I had graduated from high school, I had studied 4 languages and learned, wow, I love languages. So that was fabulous. So learned the 4 languages, and then went off to college at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, as I mentioned, and there I was traumatized over what to major in, because I knew I loved languages, but I thought, what on earth am I going to do with it? So I remember I called up my dad and I said, Dad, I just want to major in languages. This is too much fun. But I was practical. I knew I needed to be financially independent, because that was one thing my parents really instilled in me. They said, don't be dependent on anyone, whether it's a man, a parent, a child. You need to be financially independent. So anyway, in the end, he said to me, Liz, follow your passion and the rest will take care of itself. So I majored in languages at Trinity, then did my junior year in Spain, worked in Venezuela after college, and then came to New York City at age 21. And what that led to is my getting a job at a translation company. And I thought, how perfect. It combined languages and business. I worked there for 3 years, absolutely loved it, but thought it could be done better. And so that's the concept of, get out there, get the work experience, see what you love, and see what ideas you have. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What ideas can make it better? And I think it's very important that we instill this in our students through internships, summer jobs, whatever. Okay, so did all that. Then I went back to school, got my MBA from NYU, and practical me majored in finance and international business, because I thought, I got to get back to what I should do, and got a job at the proprietary trading division of a French bank. I thought, great, I'll take it, because I'll be financially secure that way. That's very important. After 4 weeks, I realized I'd made a huge mistake. I was like, first of all, sexism there. This was in 1992. And whenever the phone rang, even though I was a newly minted MBA, the guys would yell, Liz, phone, because I was the only woman. So that was one problem. But the other thing is, it wasn't my passion. It was so dry for me. So I thought, I made a mistake. After 4 weeks, I quit. I said, how much notice do you need? They said 2 weeks is fine. After 6 weeks, I left and started my company. And the reason I just went through all that is, for your students and to those of you who are students, it's important to find the things we like and ideas on how we can do them better, and also the things we don't like, which I learned quickly with finance. And just another thing to instill in our students is take the risk. When I started the company, there were 10,000 translation companies out there, but they were between 1 and 5 people. And I thought, okay, and the reason they were so small is they were started and run by linguists who were so busy doing the translations, they couldn't scale their companies. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make it different and better and make it the biggest and the best. And then got into the grind, which we can talk about, what you need to do to make the company successful, but take the risk, and it's a risk not to take a risk, because you might end up doing something you really don't want to do. So back to the students at the college, because I want to stay on topic, I mentioned at Trinity we now have an entrepreneurship program, and the idea is to instill entrepreneurial thinking, an entrepreneurial mindset into all our students, whether they become entrepreneurs or they go to a company and want to be entrepreneurs, because that's how they're going to ascend in the company. So, yeah, I mean, there's more I can say, but I want to make sure I don't go on. I mean, the idea with the Entrepreneur Center, last thing is to instill the importance of problem solving, creative thinking, innovating, and then dealing with adversity, dealing with change, communication skills, EQ, and finally work ethic, grit, all those things. And that's a lot of what we're doing with the entrepreneurship program at Trinity.
And also, I just will say, I think that the agility and the ability to see opportunities maybe where others do not, this is all huge into what's needed in the dawn of AI. And we're going to be hearing about that very soon up here. Oh, yes. But that's also getting people ready to pivot in those ways.
Absolutely, yes. I didn't mention that. I mean, I think we all know that. But with first the pandemic and then AI and tech and how it's moving so quickly and social media, we need to focus on all of these things, the human interaction, the networking. So important, and basically, like what we can do with these programs is talk to people. And this is one more example of what we're doing at Trinity with this program is getting the kids apply for it in their freshman year, and they start it in their freshman year. A quarter of our incoming students are now a part of it, and they're put into teams. So then they get to team building, collaborating, and they'll be asked a question like, okay, there's not enough water in this world. What can we do about it? And they sit there together and collaborate and come up with ideas and so on. And so that's the idea.
And what has driven your purpose with your tremendous success around giving back to so many organizations, including your commitment to us and being so generous? What is that about the Liz Elting Foundation? And share a little bit about that, because I think every single student in this room and a lot of maybe the rest of us in this room want to think about, like, what's our legacy? How do we make a difference? And Liz has given to like every year to like 15 or 20 different organizations. And my sister-in-law is a Waldenström's lymphoma survivor. Liz is being honored in Prague next week by the International Waldenström's Foundation for all the millions in research that she's given because her dad had that kind of blood disease. I'm a blood cancer survivor. So, these are things that when people start to take on these big things, and it's one of like 15 or 16 with Liz, but why, Liz, is that so important to you? And just speak a little bit about the Liz Elting Foundation so people in this room understand you and your mission to serve with what you've created financially.
Well, thank you. Yes, the reason I did it, well, first of all, I was fortunate to start my company and then grow it. And after 26 years, I sold it. So that was from 1992 to 2018. And then 6 years ago, I started my foundation. And what I say is work today like no one else will, so you can live and give tomorrow like no one else can. And we try to instill that idea, concept in entrepreneurs and business people, students, everybody. But I got involved in these causes because I, as a woman, did encounter sexism, plenty of it. I mentioned what happened at the proprietary trading division of a French bank, but also I was involved in YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and I was the only woman. It was me and 12 men, and I experienced sexism constantly there, and so on. We didn't have all the women's groups we have now, so we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. So I, as a woman, who, by the way, I would go out with my partner, my business partner, to meet with clients, and he was a guy, and I was a woman, and I was the one with the 4 languages and the 3 years experience in the industry. He didn't take any languages. He had no industry experience, and they assumed I was the assistant. So lots of sexism, and then I saw our employees encountered it over the years. So I thought, okay, need to help women, and then people from marginalized and diverse populations, not the more challenging zip codes. I thought, that we need to help them too, because they were often our best employees, and even if they weren't there, they needed to be there. We all know companies do better with more diversity. McKinsey has a lot of studies out there on this, and it's so important. And I was one of the lucky ones because, as I mentioned earlier, I had the education, I had the right role models at home, and I wanted to give back. So as a result, started my foundation, and what we do as our core mission is to help support and empower women and people from marginalized and diverse populations. But then I did get involved in some other causes like public health, cancer, heart disease, specifically. Also do a lot with education, do a lot with entrepreneurship. As I've said, I think education and entrepreneurship are the two great equalizers. And then a good amount with hunger, addressing hunger, and gun safety. Everytown for Gun Safety and Sandy Hook Promise, very important to me. And a few other organizations like, GLAM, Girls Learning Advanced Math, which is a fabulous organization started by a woman in high school that I met. She now has graduated from Stanford, and I'm on her board. So those are some, and one last one, Gretchen Carlson's Lift Our Voices, fabulous. She supports people who don't have a voice. So those are some of the organizations I'm involved in, but GlobalMindED, it's such a parallel mission, and I love what you've done with it.
Well, there's like every reason to love Liz, and I just want to say that if some of you are thinking like, okay, who should be our graduation speaker, or who should we have come out and talk to our entrepreneurs or our business deans, deans of business schools are in here. I just think the more we get the energy and the insight of the lived experiences of these kinds of people who have really beat the odds and can tell the story of it and how it works, it's really inspiring in these times where people don't want the theory right now. They want to know, how do things actually work, and how can we actually go do these things? So again, everyone will get a book. They're all in the back, and Liz is very generous in, if every single one of the students has a question, she will answer and provide her insights. But let's give Liz a big round of applause for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thanks to you. Thanks to you all.
For the next panel. So we'll finish lunch and then we'll get the next panel. Thanks, Liz. All right, everybody. I know this is one of the sessions everybody's been waiting for, because we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence with a lot of amazing people. Hi, Vivienne. So good to see you. This woman took a red eye from a major event to be here tonight. She's getting a big award, too. So it's just, a lot of people have moved heaven and earth to kind of get themselves here. So it's my pleasure to introduce David Sue, and he is from Jobs for the Future, and they are a really valued, amazing organization, and we're delighted to work with them and be thoughtfully thinking through our June event and their summer event collectively, as well as how we can jointly programmatically work together. So let's give David a big round of applause and his panel.
All right. Thank you, Carol. And I'm really excited for the conversation. AI is certainly the topic of the day. But I think you see the title there. It's really about the human capacity in AI. There have been a million panels about AI, the tool and the skills and all that. But I think the human we've heard today, and Janet was talking about the human side of finance. So now we're going to talk about the human side of AI. You might count there are 5 people up here, and we have just under 50 minutes. So we're going to try to keep our answers brief and keep this punchy so that we get to, I have about 20 questions that I put down here. I don't think we'll get to them all, but hopefully we'll get to as many of them as possible. So if we could just start with real quick introductions, one line about who you are, what you do, and then one more line or two about what excites you about AI.
Alrighty, I'm Vivienne Ming. I'm at UC Berkeley, but I also foolishly started a bunch of companies. What excites me about AI? 11 years ago, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and I watched wonderful people treating him by handwriting numbers and squinting at them, and I said, fuck this. And I hacked all of his medical equipment and developed the first ever AI for diabetes, and then we gave it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Crouch. I am the Chief Program Officer at AI for Education, and we are a services and a consulting organization, female-found and bootstrapped, and we support educational institutions with responsible AI integration. What excites me, and I was sitting over there wanting to jump in at the second panel and Liz and Carol's conversation about entrepreneurship and just thinking about what can be possible for young people in the future. I think AI has the capacity to give so much access that didn't previously exist. Of course, with risks and limitations, but the access and the opportunity for abundance for more in an equitable way is really what gets me excited.
Nice to meet everyone. I just want to say it's amazing to hear the work that you're doing. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I run an emerging AI venture studio to accelerate the velocity of innovation. And what excites me is it's a new learning platform. And it's a new way to learn things that you might do on your own, you might do with others. And we're just unpacking this puppy at this time, so I think the promise it holds is going to be vast. But the first and the most important is human behavior, our understanding when to adapt, because it can't be used for everything. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Gurneet. I'm an associate partner with McKinsey & Company. I do all of my work in the intersection of technology and labor markets. Very excited to be here. Thank you for the invite. What I'm really excited about AI is the new technologies and the new developments and the R&D that will come up, which we don't know about, how it will solve the human sense of it, jobs, and I think that will be really exciting going forward.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, GlobalMindED, for this invitation. I have the honor of serving as president of Illinois Institute of Technology, based in the south side of Chicago. We are a university that has provided unprecedented access and simultaneously success for our students. 40% of our students are Pell eligible and are first generation, and we have 92% employment rate 6 months after graduation because we are a technology university. What excites me about artificial intelligence is the ability to provide unprecedented access and democratize education at affordable levels so that we can truly unleash human potential at scale. Something that we have not seen in the recorded history yet.
Excellent. That's great. A great introduction to our day. So Vivienne, I wonder if we could start with you. We're in a room with a lot of educators, and so obviously skills are really important, but it's not the whole part of the ballgame, and the human side of AI is really important. Can you just unpack that term and what you think about there?
Yeah, and we'll keep it quick and punchy. My wife and I are both nerds, and so a fun conversation for us. She is running a project at the Carnegie Foundation to end the Carnegie unit. No more 4-unit courses, no more all or nothing. And part of what we nerd out about is what would I dream of as an AI system to assess students? Not just do they know how to factorize a polynomial, can they demonstrate a concrete skill, but how about the actual factors that predict career and life outcomes? Are they resilient? And if they're not, how do we help get them there? That's the sort of thing that matters. With those foundational skills, if we want to call them that, then they can go learn how to factorize a polynomial. So these are the sorts of things that excite us. And what is really powerful at this moment in time, less a metaphor and more an example, one of my nonprofits, we're developing a system that supports call center workers at suicide hotlines. Someone calls in, their entire social media history is loaded into the system with their pre-existing permission, and a set of AIs we developed analyze it for suicidality, looking across their entire personal history, and then it feeds it in to a large language model, and that model then becomes an agent, not for the person in crisis, I wouldn't trust that, right, but for the people receiving the call. Here's Vivienne's triggers. Here's why she's calling right now. Here are the things that have helped bring her back down in the past. It's incredibly powerful. We've had a chance to validate this with actual clinically diagnosed patients and work at it. Imagine not just that same level of specificity and personalization brought into education, where I founded 2 companies, and as I said, my wife works, but to go further. How about the exam argues why this student is ready to move forward? Why they may not have this one concrete skill, but the combination of their skills means that they are ready for the next step in this experience. And, I'm going to add one additional unrequested note. For that to really work well, whether it's the suicide hotline or the education application, then I have to trust that the data I'm feeding into that system are truly being used in my best interest, and that I'm not trading away my future in exchange for some private organization knowing everything about me. And so one of the things I do is I run a data trust with that mission of decoupling people's privacy from the value of AI. And the value in education is huge for the reasons people have been talking about and I just brought up. It has that incredibly complicated feature that it can do so much, but right now you're having to give it everything in exchange. And I think we need to figure out how to break that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love that example of the suicide hotline, that there's the risk and the reward there. And the risk I would see is if someone says, well, maybe you don't need that counselor, we can just let the AI do it. And so how do you make sure that your argument that that's not the right way to do it wins?
A person in a depressive episode will talk the AI into talking them into ending it. Mm-hmm. I 100% guarantee it. It would be wildly irresponsible and immoral. And I think we can, with much lower stakes, imagine similar experiences happening. Sam Altman got in front of the US Congress and said, imagine a world in which every student had their own AI tutor. Well, we shouldn't have to imagine it. That research has been going on for 40 or 50 years. If a student has an AI tutor that gives them the answers, they never learn anything. Anything. It robs them of their learning experiences. In fact, the best AI tutors only give context. They're frustratingly psychotic, Socratic. But it is in that context that they actually support the students the best. They only give them what they need, not what they want.
Yeah, great. Well, so Corey, you are a K-12, or you have been a K-12 educator, and I feel like you know that community well. How do you think that they're doing with this? How are they thinking about it? What are the opportunities that the K-12 system has?
The opportunities in the K-12, and I would actually say this is true for K-16, post-grad, all of us in here. I want to say actually before we think about what could all of the technology and tooling be and what would it look like for every student to have an AI tutor, some of that is happening. And a lot of the work that we do is about the foundation of building AI literacy. We are product agnostic, but we work really hard to try to stay on top of the tooling and the products and the capabilities and the limitations of the technology. What is AI literacy? I'm sure you've heard digital literacy, digital citizenship, and I do believe it fits within that. But what we do is really talk about what does it mean to, one, be aware of what the technology is, its capabilities, and its limitations. Be aware of the data sets, the bias, be aware of hallucinations, be aware of who is building the technology and who's not yet represented in who's building the technology. And then we build a foundation of understanding for educators, leaders, anybody in this room, as well as for pre-K through post-grad. What does it mean to understand how to use the technology safely, ethically, and then effectively? And sometimes in education, again, be it K-12 or beyond, we like to jump to the what does it look like to use the technology effectively? How do I get value out of it towards student outcomes? And that's important, but only if we're doing it ethically and safely. How do we maintain the understanding that this has to be human-centric, and we've got to be so careful about exacerbating isolation and exacerbating the mental health crisis, especially among our young people. We have to be careful about that. We have to be careful about giving up all of our private information and anybody else. And then we also have to think about the ethics of it. Some of it's really clear. Don't create a deep fake of your classmate and post it online. Like, that's a clear ethical question, but there are so many ethical questions that there isn't clear precedence yet, especially around copyright and IP. And then, of course, we have effectively. So in K-12, and yes, there is tooling galore, and that piece of it is important, but also for ourselves, and then for those that we lead, if we're leaders within education, as well as then for our students, building that foundation that has very little to do with the tooling and more about being set up to use it towards positive outcomes and mitigating those risks.
All right, excellent. I'm going to jump down to Raj at the end of the dais here, one of our college presidents in the room. I'd like you to reflect a little bit on what the possibilities are in higher ed. I think you said to me yesterday, scale and personalization are two possibilities, so just tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, so two things, David. One, I think we have had a long history, about 40, 50 years with computerization, and there are certain best practices we can glean because the promise of computerization has happened for certain people, but also has created a massive divide, which has led to a lot of problems, etc. The second thing is, I want to echo our panelists. So what I'm talking about is about responsible AI. And to me, beyond the efficiencies that you can harness with artificial intelligence, ability to do routine tasks at lower costs, etc., what excites me is the possibility of education at both scale and personalization. When you think about higher education, the American higher ed, when you think about the great publics of our day or Western governors today, people have done extraordinarily well with respect to scale. And we have also had the European model, the Oxford, the Cambridge, which with personalization. Personally, I think with responsible AI, with all the caveats that Corey and Vivienne have talked about, I think we have an opportunity to design, build, support through virtual tutoring, etc. And last but not the least, enable our learners to become impactful in the modern world. Of course, it's not, at the end of the day, to me, I believe in David Autor, who's from MIT, his thesis, that for the first time, if we act responsibly, we can do two things at the same time. Provide the foundational structure of knowledge that people need, but on top of it, build decision-making and elite expertise, if you will, that people can use and so on, which I will argue is the only way for us to unleash human potential. When you think about our history as a nation, 1860, our GDP was $90 billion in today's dollar value. Today we are about $29 trillion. Just do that curve and then have the access to education to people. 60,000 students in higher ed in 1860. Today it's close to 20 million people. And when you see there is a correlation, a very high correlation, but this is still not enough. When you think about a country like India, 75% of people don't go to college. $4 trillion economy, for it to go to 25 trillion in the next 25 years, you absolutely need education. Otherwise it can't happen. So that's my thesis, that because of personalization and scale that can happen at the same time, you can drive down the cost curve, increase the accessibility, and therefore I think it's potentially, if we use it responsibly, it could be a golden age for higher education around the world.
Great.
Ripping off of that is a recognition, though, of implicitly what's there inside that AI. I had the chance to talk about this at the Jobs for the Future event. I've got my phone in my pocket right now. It's got Gemini and Claude and GPT in it. And I could ask them questions on any subjects I'm expert in, subjects I'm not, with some caveats around hallucination. I have all the world's knowledge for free in my pocket, which is what Cornell over there is about, is in putting that in Columbia uptown and NYU and all these other universities have spent generations, well spent, trying effortfully to put that knowledge into our heads. And now it's right here, virtually for free. So one thing I think we all have to think about is, what is it that we need to put into our students that makes them more valuable than this $100 phone in my pocket? Because if all we're doing is building a human version of these phones, a bunch of routine skills and esoteric knowledges, even if those knowledges are hard-won and they take decades to build, we're going to lose that fight. Because a recent estimate is that this is about 1/10,000th the cost of a human expert, say, for lawyers. So what's left? By the way, there are answers to these questions. I think wonderful answers to these questions. What's left and what's uniquely human in this space? But we desperately need to jettison the idea that the point of elementary, secondary, or university education is to pack a whole bunch of esoteric facts into and skills into kids, and somehow that will magically make them human. Or that's what they need to know to master AI. So very yes and. I think there's a huge chance for personalization and being able to reach not every kid, because not every kid's going to be able to access the internet in this way, but so many more in a unique way. But that also gives us the chance to say, but it also doesn't have to be the way education has been. We can do this differently. We can build actual human beings instead of a list of skills on a resume.
All right, yeah, that's great. And there's a lot of the skills. I mean, you just said resilience. I think Lynn was talking earlier about democracy. And so like we can start listing out all the things that we want to foster with this. Dave, I wonder if we could come to you. You do a lot of thinking in the workforce development space, certainly entrepreneurship as well. Like what opportunities are you seeing that you want to foster more of?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue I think we're all contending with is behavioral change. And I built a couple hundred semiconductor factories, and through that period of time, watching the adoption of that technology from when it was first starting, and the resistance that naturally takes place because we're used to doing it some other way. So, you know, in the workforce, that's still true now, even more so with AI because of the complexities are much greater than they've been in the past. So organizations are looking at ways in which to help spur innovation beyond, as you had mentioned, you know, first thing you're going to do is figure out how to get more efficient, how to cut overhead and all that. The thing I get most encouraged by is when organizations such as Moderna, every employee at Moderna is given the freedom to go explore AI. Some of it is to get a job done, some of it's for personal growth. At Schneider Electric, they have their HR system mapped so they can bring teams to collaborate across disciplines in ways that they haven't before. And using AI as a vehicle to, I would consider a proxy in some ways, but a way in which to get people to understand other perspectives. And so I think in the workforce we're seeing that. I think from the standpoint of the entrepreneurial side, one thing we lose sight of is a lot of what we're doing is trying to serve customers, serve people whose outcome is to improve a service, improve a contribution to a market. And that's something we don't concentrate on as we're rising a student and their individual skills. And so we're seeing a lot more activity within business to help stimulate the personalization of what's important to someone and how do they translate that to business outcomes.
All right, great. I have a question for you, Gurneet, in a second. But I just want to say I'm going to ask any of the students in the room if you all want to ask a question. So just start thinking of questions over the next couple of minutes and I'll call on someone. But yeah, so Gurneet, I know you're at McKinsey. You all are doing a lot of research there. One of the reports I saw said that we need to double the number of career transitions, which sounds like a daunting task. Yeah. Like, are we ready for that? What do we need to be thinking about as an economy to get prepared for that?
So we have been researching about this topic for a very long time. When we did our research before COVID, we found that almost 16 to 17 million occupational transitions will be required by 2030. When we revisited this research, we found that during COVID, 9 million of these transitions happened. So there was a lot of mobility that happened. People did transition from a job to another job going forward. When we look forward now, there are approximately 12 million more transitions which will be required going forward, which is almost 30% higher than what we were predicting earlier. So 9 plus 12, 21, which will be mostly in jobs which are office support, production work, customer service, who will change different occupations going forward as well. Jobs will not only be destroyed, they will be gained as well. Trillions of dollars are being spent on IRA, energy transitions. So a lot of new jobs will be created. Almost 25% of our workforce would be above 65 years of age. There'll be a lot of healthcare need going forward as well. And this technology adoption will not happen on its own, right? You need skilled workforce to implement, digitize as well. But at the same time, are we prepared? I think we are walking step by step. Any action we take will only work towards making us a prosperous future going forward. For education, curriculum needs to change. For employers, they would need to make sure that transitions happen really quickly. For people, individuals, if you're not learning almost 30 minutes every day, you're already behind. So everybody needs to learn, not only just the new people who are coming, new students who are joining the workforce, but also like all of us. So there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done for this. I also think there is a lot of work to be done together as an ecosystem provider. We have to work together for this. We are not there yet in terms of making sure all parties together sit in a room, try to solve this together going forward. There's a big change, but I also see possibilities, right? There are countries where I come from India, and almost like 70% of the people do not have access to good education, right? They do not speak common languages. They do not even sometimes know how to read and write. These tools help them, bring them in terms of like empowerment, access to education, and could really be a step towards making sure everybody participates in the economy going forward. And there is huge upside, but we will need a lot more effort going forward. It is not constrained on a person or an organization. Yeah. Sitting in different parts, we all have to work like cross borders, cross industry, and cross sectors together.
Yeah, that's such an important point. I guess one question I follow up for you or for anyone else on the panel is, how are we going to pay for all of that learning? Like, if people are going to need to learn throughout their lives, I used to work at the U.S. Department of Education. I don't think that our financial aid system is up to the task. So, like, is it on the corporations? Does government need to rethink? Maybe all of the above. But I wonder how you think about that.
I think everybody has to kind of pitch in from their own right. A lot of money has to flow in this direction going forward. I serve a lot of large organizations through where I work. And they are doing a lot in terms of making sure at the first step they even define what the skill taxonomies are. They don't even know like exact skills what people have in their own organizations. So how do you make transition if you do not know what's going on, right? Similarly for governments, the effectiveness or the efficacy of funding needs to be improved. So I think money is a big problem. The volume of it matters, but more important is the effectiveness as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I'll throw in. It's interesting. A couple of the companies I founded, which got me started in this space, a couple were in education, others were in talent and hiring, and they were all about using AI. And so, in fact, the title of my new book, I think, comes from the very first time I met you at the Department of Education, and someone asked me, how do we robot-proof our kids? Well, that's the title of my next book. But the other question that comes up a lot is AI going to take all the jobs? And the answer, fairly convincingly, is no, create a lot more jobs than it destroys. Here's the much more interesting question. Who will be qualified to hold those jobs? And right now, very few, because almost all of the high demand job growth are in what we might call, I think somewhat mistakenly, elite skilled jobs, which includes a lot of elite managerial roles, particularly jobs that create what we think of as very human skills tied with very concrete technical skills. So engineering management, huge growth field. But what makes someone a great manager is a thing that's poorly tied down. And in what way are we, certainly in early education and maybe in university, are we actually preparing people for those roles? To learn how to be a professor, I was taught how to write a dissertation, a thing I never will ever again do in my entire life. What an insane thing. I wasn't taught how to manage a budget. I wasn't taught how to write grant proposals, even though that's my whole job. As Jack Gallen, a professor at UC Berkeley, once described it, his lab is like a big snake. All the work gets done in the guts in the middle. He handles the eating and the shitting. He writes the grant proposals and then gives the talks. So this is what we're confronted with, is there will be lots of jobs. How do we prepare people? I'm going to be super blunt here. Not for jobs in elder care that pay incredibly, it should be an amazing job, but it is not. How do we prepare them for the jobs that we truly aspire all of our kids to hold? And I think that's a more challenging question than people are willing to engage with right now. But again, I think it's one that has genuine and concrete answers.
I'm going to add one more thing on that, is the comment Maria mentioned earlier about the redefining the flow of capital. And, you know, we've had an institutional reinforcement that's been with us for decades, generations. And, you know, some of that needs to flow from corporate because they get the benefit of what you just were talking about. Some of it will come from family office. And I'm seeing that, you know, there's a $14 trillion waterfall that's going to happen through those generations. They're recognizing the younger generation has a different view than the older generation. How do they help pass that wealth? And most of the younger folks want to put it to this kind of application. And last, I think global-minded and convening, or jobs for the future, in convening to surface ideas, thoughts from the bottom up and get us to be motivated to find those places to collaborate and succeed with us.
Great. So I want to put a finer point on a topic that we've been talking a little bit about, and that's of equity. So AI could either drive more equity or it could reify our existing inequities. And so I wonder what you all think we need to do to make sure that it's the right way.
Thank you. So to me, Vivienne raised a great point. So I want to address one very quick thing, which is the only way to robot-proof our kids is to infuse them with human skills so that they don't have to outcompete technology, which they'll never be able to do. And to me, I also want to make a distinction between the knowledge that is available in our cell phones and the wisdom that comes out of learning to apply through critical thinking, which is what we need to do as artificial intelligence. To me, when I think about the future, and we have to remember, artificial intelligence today is like what internet was in 1994. I remember a professor telling us, you can watch cricket on the internet and so on. I'm from India, obviously you can see my cricket bias, but and we didn't even, if we had written in our journal what the internet will be in 2024, we would have all underestimated the whole thing. As a society, we tend to overestimate what is going to happen in the short run and underestimate what happens in the long run. So AI in the next 20, 30, 40 years is going to be generational. To me, what I would love to have from artificial intelligence is, some sort of explainable AI, not AI that hallucinates, and therefore there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of what it provides as an output, etc. But the ability to explain how it came up with certain things, etc. Because if we develop responsible ethical AI, I think it is going to amplify human power and human potential in ways that we have never seen.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that too. So the equity question in many rooms, I gotta say, let's be honest, technology, AI, generative AI, super intelligent, none of those things created the inequity that exists. So the answer to this question, sure, we can ideate and problem solve and be entrepreneurial about how to leverage the power of emerging technologies to address the equity questions that we have. The reality is that we can't solve a problem with technology that humans created. So we have to be really honest about the forces and the power that is perpetuating inequity. I deeply believe that the technology can exacerbate those divisions and the inequity and the different worldviews. But we also can't just say, how are we going to solve it with AI? Because the solution, the answer is human-based. And part of this, we've talked about personalization, and it is an incredible opportunity in learning pathways, in medical support, in mental health support. Personalization is certainly an extraordinary opportunity with this technology. And we, again, have to be very careful that that doesn't lead us to a world where we're all just hanging out with our AI friends and our AI employees and living in our own self-affirming echo chamber of character AIs and replica AIs and bots that are it's like super personalized, to Corey, but I'm never being exposed to rejection or, worldviews that are different than my own or different life experiences. Being exposed and engaging in conversation and engaging in collaboration and problem solving with other humans, especially those that are different from ourselves, that's the thing, I believe, that leads us to a world where we can get closer and closer to more equity and abundance for others. Is AI involved in all of that? Absolutely. But we have to know how to collaborate with one another and solve big problems with one another and collaborate with the technology and the machines that are going to be involved in it as well.
All right. Thank you. I'm keeping an eye on the time because I know Carol is as well. Are there any of the students here that have a question? I see one and two. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And just loud.
Loud. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Abdul Sisi. I'm a graduate student at one of the best institutions in the world, Grand Valley State University. Just had to say that. But okay. So eventually, I want to be a university president. So I guess this is more for you since you're on the panel. But how do you think traditional colleges that have academic advisors and tutors and things like that can compete or compare to online institutions that are better positioned to leverage AI? They don't have all the same people and facilities. That's question one. But then also, how do you personalize higher ed without making it completely online?
Great
Thank
question.
you.
Can
Thank you for the
paraphrase the
question.
question, Raj, just a little bit so that in case folks didn't
Sure.
hear it?
If I remember, the first thing is he wants to be a college president at some day. Thank you. The broad question is, how do you personalize face-to-face residential institution when it is more in tune with what you can do online, correct? And so to me, I have very strong views on this. Just like it was e-commerce 20 years ago and it is just commerce right now, mm-hmm. I think this artificial dichotomy between residential institutions and online is going to wean away in the next few years. This is not to say there is not a place for a pure online institution, etc., but for a residential institution like ours and the great Grand Valley State, run by a good friend of mine, Philly Mantella. Jesse, Elizabeth, make sure Philly knows that I said this. Okay? Yeah. I think all of us have to become hybrid institutions. So what does artificial intelligence in a hybrid setting mean? Students do their homework. If you are in a residential institution, you do your homework overnight and come back, and school is fundamentally for engaging with you on critical thinking. And so I think we are incredibly diverse, we are incredibly innovative as a society. So I think we'll figure out a way that all institutions, both face-to-face residential institutions and online, will all try to incorporate AI the best way that they can. Because at the end of the day, it is about you, which leads me to your first question. How do you empower students. And to me, this is where student voices and having students in the input process of how you're going to develop this is going to be fairly critical. And I think the panel at 3 o'clock is going to talk about it. How do you incorporate student voices in this 21st century world? So I hope I answered your question. By the way, congratulations, best wishes, and I hope you sit here 10 years from now as a college president.
Yeah. I think we had one more question in the back. No.
So what type of changes or implementations would we need so that it's easily accessible to them and for them to learn?
Wonderful question. Thank you.
There was, back in the 2016 election, NPR did these interviews in West Virginia. And they interviewed a bunch of coal miners. That's how they saw themselves. They weren't currently doing that job. But what they said was, for 10 years, people have been promising to upskill us and retrain us. We're going to become software developers, or this new job, the globalization was going to bring these benefits. And it's 10 years later, and I don't have a new job. I just want my coal mining job back. And Donald Trump said he'd give it to me. I didn't actually believe him, but at least he said he'd try. So I voted for him. You can't keep making false promises and expecting the majority of the world to keep going along with you if you make no space in the future for them. There are some brutal realities here that if we do take this very human-centered approach to education and AI, you can change an entire generation. I don't just mean prepare the elite kids for a life they would have had everywhere. You really could bring everyone along. But you're asking the question I don't think people want to deal with because there isn't as clean and a good an answer. Clearly, there are a group of undiscovered diamonds in the rough out there that could be changing the world and aren't being given the chance for a wide variety of reasons. And I will say, a lot of companies in this town paid one of my companies a lot of money to find people like that. So I can tell you definitely they exist. People that don't have the pedigree but have just as much of the potential. But they're risky and no one wants to take a risk. But maybe I'm talking about 10%. That's my dream. 10% of the global workforce that's in the economy already is ready for that transition. What about the other 90%? How do we give them work with dignity? Work that has meaningful impacts on the world, but we're not giving them a false promise that somehow we're magically going to train them all to have AI literate skills and they will get these amazing jobs we're talking about, because I don't think that's being honest. To which, I mean, my personal statement would be, every one of the bridges along this river needs to get replaced sometime soon. So how about we rebuild all of those? How about we rebuild the infrastructure of the United States or build better infrastructure around the world? And we recognize it has to happen, and there's an amazing group of people out there that can do it, and they can get a great middle-class wage doing so. And in that effort, we find all of those diamonds in the rough and prepare them and bring them into that creative economy on day one and prepare the kids. But I don't see a magic pill that transforms everyone into... Google's not going to hire everybody, and they don't want to. They are incredibly precious with the culture of their company. It's why they have so many contract workers. Keep those non-Googlers out of our culture. We don't want them corrupting this hard work ethic we've tried to build. So with that reality, we need an honest set of policies for how we make real dignified space for people to participate, because the gains can be huge, but if they're not shared with everyone, and there's no future, then why would you go along with it?
Yeah.
Looks like you have a follow-up.
Yes, because you said it is risky, but everything in business is risky. AI right now is conquered by half of society as a risk. And I'm not saying we want to have the older generation all implemented in the workplace, but I'm saying there should be an equality where it is accessible for them. So how do we move forward with making that space for them while giving the kids also?
The dirty secret of business and finance is they say they're risk capital, and they are not. They are 100% looking for the lowest risk thing that will give the biggest return. Having said that, though, I'm saying people are perceived as risky. I don't believe that they actually are, but that's the nature of this. I should stop soapboxing here, except to say that there's a huge amount. Everyone's amazing. But very few of us historically have gotten the chance to live the life to truly realize that amazing person. Yeah. And it can be really hard to bring that out of someone that didn't have a lot of just the good fortune of the genetic lottery right up front in their lives. But far from impossible. Start early, you can do something amazing. I just think we need to be realistic about what's achievable today for people already in the workforce.
So we're just at time. I'm going to go down the line real quick for like a 2-second lightning round. Because we have such a great group, there's so much that we have to do together. I just wonder if you each have like a call to action, or I think Carol talked earlier about uncommon collaborations. Like, what's an uncommon collaboration or a call to action that you'd like to see folks in this room doing?
I'll get us started. My call to action to all of you is to build your own AI literacy. If you haven't, great. If you use ChatGPT on the regular, you're on your way there. Try Notebook LM, try Claude, try image generation, try Sunos, check out the video. Like, do the exploration and invite it to the table. It's going to be not very good initially. You're gonna be like, oh, this is interesting, but I can do it better. But you need to understand the capabilities and the limitations yourself so that you can think about what is safe, what is ethical, and what does it look like for this technology to be effective and equitable for my students, my colleagues, my family, whoever it may be. So
All right.
Try it out.
Perfect.
I'd recommend building bridges. I think the comment earlier about inclusiveness, personalization, we should listen. We're interviewing a bunch of Gen Z folks about what they would like to see, what they're afraid of. And using AI as a vehicle for that conversation. We do the same thing in the workforce. So I think we have now at our disposal the ability to listen, not with surveys, but with conversation.
Right.
So
Great.
I'd advocate that.
Perfect. Thank you.
My call to action is kind of cliche, but I think it works really well. Continue to learn and make sure you pass that learning to others as well. Make every month try to be make sure you meet 5 new people, try to make sure you make them learn something new, and that's the way it'll gonna pass for all the generations going forward.
Perfect. My suggestion / advice will be, you have a lot of influence. Make sure that in your personal sphere, whatever you do, you try to see the possibilities in order to reduce the inequality that you see around the world. Mm-hmm. If each one of us does it, I think there's going to be massive change in the long run.
Great. Last word?
I already talked a lot, but this will sound metaphorical. I mean it literally. Figure out the thing you'd be willing to do if you had to pay for it yourself and no one ever knew that you did it. You have to completely give it away simply because you believe that is the right thing to do in the world. And then figure it out tonight and literally go do it. Just give it away. It is the best decision I ever made, is to do things simply because they should be happen and to expect absolutely nothing back. It will change your life.
All right. Well, thank you all. This has been a great conversation. And thanks, Carol. All right.
And I just want to say, Vivienne, right now, I want you to work with GlobalMindED and give away some of your brilliance to help us with the algorithmically, ability to connect millions of these students to the AARP, 40 million people, the people at SHRM and their ERGs, and this is a woman who can help us do that. Dave, really all these people, but since she's giving it away, I'm just going to say in front of all you right now, can we have that commitment from you?
Sure. So if anyone's interested, visit thehumantrust.org. I run a philanthropic lab. We just help people, period. So feel free, if you need some help with something, just
I met her in a hotel lobby at JFF, and we talked for like an hour, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this even happened. So anyway, thanks to that fabulous panel, and thanks to David and JFF. And if we can have the students all come up for the next panel, we're going to keep it all moving here pretty quickly, but it's going to be wonderful as a way the next couple of hours to hear that voice of our emerging leaders, to hear these incredible students. And the next couple panels are really focused on that. So come on up and we'll get ready. And we'll also share that the person who's leading this session is really our major presenting sponsor, was last year and is this year. And that is Sam Lallane from Morgan Stanley. They do incredible inclusive leading work. He'll be able to share that a little bit with you. And then he's going to impart through these students what some of them along their path, some of them have graduated, some of them are sophomores, juniors, seniors, what they wish they had knew as freshmen to be able to really prepare more effectively for their professional success. So let's give Sam and his panelists a big round of applause. Thank you.
Always have to leave room for a photo. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? I know it's that time of the day. You've had a long day. You had your lunch. It can get a little sleepy this time. I think that's why we're on this panel at this particular moment of the day. We're going to energize you with the voices of this generation that's coming into the workforce. So we're really excited to be with you all today, and I thank our fellow panelists for being here and sharing your perspectives and vision. But before we get to our panelists, just maybe a bit of an introduction. As it was mentioned before, I'm with Morgan Stanley, Sam Lallane, Chief Diversity Officer at Morgan Stanley. I've been there for about 5 years. Prior to that, I spent 17 years at Citigroup, so spent most of my career in the financial services industry. And we are proud to be sponsors of GlobalMindED in this particular event here today, United Nations. So thank you for being with us all, and thank you for having Morgan Stanley a part of this tremendous event. My personal story, and really the reason why I'm connected to GlobalMindED far beyond what my day job is like many of our students in the room, I'm first generation as well. I think of myself as first generation in 3 different ways. First generation American, first in my family to go to a 4-year college, first in my family to work in a corporate setting in the financial services industry. And I think that unique perspective that I have has really tuned the things that I've done in my career. So I spend my time at Morgan Stanley, as you all know. And Morgan Stanley, what we do as a financial services company is we raise, we manage, and we allocate capital to individuals and institutions. As a Chief Diversity Officer, my role is to take that strategy and figure out what does it mean for our young people? What does it mean for our diverse communities? And how do we embed that strategy into everything we do at Morgan Stanley? So what I would share for you all to be aware of is that we have something that we launched a few years ago called our Institute for Inclusion. Our Institute for Inclusion is a facility that helps us think about inclusive efforts, both internally and externally. We're in 41 countries. We have 80,000 employees around the world. and we think about how we serve the communities where we operate in. So that strategy is thinking about our people, the folks within the doors at Morgan Stanley, and how we bring them in, our communities, and our clients. So how do we think of the commercial access and opportunities that we've heard a lot of conversation about today? How do we bring that into the work at Morgan Stanley? So we do so a number of different ways. Through our efforts through the Institute, thinking about the young people that are represented on the stage here, we have impacted over the year 32,000 students. We have scholarship programs in every region, including here in the US, several scholarship programs. One that I would call out is our HBCU Scholars Program. We have 4 cohorts in, 60 total scholars that are receiving full 4-year academic scholarships. So if you think about the access to education, the access to generational wealth and how that transpires, being able to pay for college, be able to not have to have the anxiety about how you're going to pay for that next semester, and then ultimately leaving school debt-free is a mission that we're proud to support. But not only from the United States perspective, but broadly. We have scholarship programs in India. We have scholarship programs across Asia, based in Hong Kong. Bringing those scholarship programs to life is something that we're very, very proud of. And those are just some examples that I'd like to share with you all today. But so with our previous panel, we answered the question, the AI question. What we're going to seek to do now is really provide insights into what this generation that is entering into the workforce, what they're thinking about, what they want out of their next few years of matriculating through college and into the workplace. We have a number of partners around the room. We have college presidents and deans and government officials and so on and so forth. We're going to share some insights that we think that you should know as these students matriculate. So let's start maybe just with some introductions. Peggy, we'll start with you, and then we'll just go down name, affiliation, and we'll start with our formal questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Peggy. I'm a senior at Harvard.
Hi everyone, I'm John Slade. I am representing 2 institutions here. I'm an analyst at Morgan Stanley, and I'm a graduate of Howard University.
Hello everyone, my name is Alondra Daniela Solis Ayala, and I am president at Colorado State University Pueblo for the student government.
Hi everyone, my name is Shoaib Mugapadia. I'm a first year at Baruch College, majoring in finance.
Hello everyone, my name is Ayana DeFreitas. I am the GlobalMindED intern, and I'm also a student at Burnpool College.
Yeah, so welcome our fellow panelists. So let's keep the microphone with you, John. We'll start with you. You mentioned a little bit about your background, your affiliation. We're colleagues. We spent a lot of time together. We were just talking the other day about how we finally recall meeting each other during your internship summer during COVID, which was virtual. John found a way to get into an office building during COVID. Don't ask.
Don't tell anyone.
He's the only one in there, but he found a way in. And you also mentioned your background as a graduate of one of the prestigious HBCUs, Howard University in DC. So with that background, John, would love for you to kind of consider your path forward. You're 2+ years into your career. You graduated college, you've done the summer internships, you've moved into a full-time role based off of that summer internship experience, and you're in a very competitive part of the industry. John, you're in capital markets and our investment banking business. Very exclusive, hard to get into, very competitive recruiting process. Fun fact, we have, I was just talking to our recruiters, we have 4 spots for our next class and 1,500 applications. Wow. 1,500. So that's the type of seat that John has found his way into, no doubt because of his background, his well-deserved access to that opportunity. So John, with that background and thinking about your educational background at Howard, what are some of the things that you probably identified early on at your time at Howard that were maybe gaps to your progress that you looking back on either as a senior or now as an analyst at Morgan Stanley, you look back to the beginning of your college experience, you identify them as gaps. What are some of those gaps that you can share with the college presidents and deans in the room today that maybe they could be knowledgeable about that could help to narrow those gaps in the future for future generations of students entering into college?
Sure thing. It's interesting. You're helping me appreciate how lucky I was, Sam. That as a freshman at Howard, although I was a great student and I was even president of my freshman class, what I didn't know was how the responsibility for my employment trajectory would really fall on me. I think in high school and leading up to college, we have a teacher or a parent or a counselor kind of hold our hands through many processes. Here, your employment trajectory is something that you really have to take responsibility for. And I don't think that my lack of being prepared was the fault of Howard. I think that there are things that I could have done. For example, there are a number of groups and organizations on campus that are professional clubs that help students get these roles. And I think that what I could have done is surround myself with peers who were also aspiring for banking and capital markets internships. And by associating myself with them, I would have realized what it takes to compete. So the first few interviews for these internships that I ended up landing were really awkward, very, very rough. But I sympathize with the college presidents in the room and the college leaders because they are leading academic institutions. They're not leading job placement programs, although they're kind of expected to function like they are. But what I'd encourage them to do is kind of message to your freshmen what I wish somebody would message to me, which is, listen, John, this isn't high school. Your employment trajectory, the responsibility for your employment trajectory falls on you. And let me think. And that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but that's what I'd message to the college.
And John, just to kind of think about that point, that trajectory that you've been on, did you know what you wanted to do when you were a first-year college student? Did you know what you wanted to do for your career?
I had a vague idea. I was a philosophy major.
So makes sense, investment banking, philosophy.
Obviously. But I chose philosophy because during my gap year, I read an article and the author said that the best way to make yourself competitive even 4 years down the road, it's hard to tell what will be relevant, but the best way to do that is to teach yourself how to think as opposed to what to think. So when I got on campus, I had no idea about the investment grade credit markets or the high yield market, or these financial concepts that I had to learn and be able to talk about on interviews. But I think that foundation of learning how to think about these kind of high level concepts is what helped me.
Yeah. It's interesting. Traditionally in the investment banking business, historically it's been, building a pipeline of students that are in business fields, economics, finance, et cetera. But what we've seen recently is that it's much more open-ended than it ever was before. The fact we kind of joked about your philosophy background there, but the truth of the matter is that's not really that rare nowadays. We see a lot of liberal arts students that are matriculating to careers in investment banking because it's not about knowing the concepts, the market, the financial concepts when you step into the door. It's your ability and willingness to be able to learn and to be able to apply what you learn. So it's really problem solvers that we're looking for in building in through our talent pool. And John, that's just an example of that. Thank you for sharing. Shorik, let's move over to you. If we can skip, I think you have a microphone over there, so great. So Shorik, you're local. You are at Baruch College, one of the prestigious colleges, part of the CUNY system. Hello. All right. So you're not alone, right? You have your family here with you. That's great. So, Shorik, for you, what did you wish you knew as a first-year college student that could have helped you now that you're kind of thinking about the next steps in your career path? And by way of like context and background, maybe tell us about your Morgan Stanley connection as well.
Sure thing. So since I'm a first-year college student, high school senior year was definitely a very fun time. For me, what happened was during my spring semester of senior year, I had the chance to apply for futures and options, and that enabled me to get in risk department with Morgan Stanley, which was very enlightening for me. And from there, I think during the summer of my senior year, I had the chance to come across Atlas Fellows. And for a first-generation student like myself, that was a really big enabler to allow me to intern with Balyasny. And now as a first-year student, I think looking back, I would say to summarize what I would tell myself, it would be two big things. The first one would be meaningful work, and the second of which would be practical experience. When it comes to meaningful work, what I mean is I wish I understood how to research companies holistically. Like not just their reputation as in like which companies are very well known, but who are you working for? Like what are their constituencies, the people they care about? And I think if I better understood that, I would have felt more meaning with the work I was doing and the efforts I was putting in, coming in as a, I guess, undergraduate student. And on that note, that sort of made me think about how we as college students usually view internships as like benchmarks. Where everyone sets like certain quotas by sophomore year to stay in line with recruiting season. And I think like one thing I've come to learn is it's really important to seek meaningful work, which not only challenges your skill sets, but sort of allows you to see what type of opportunities there are, even if they're not like the most prestigious names there are in the industry. And from that, I think it's an approach I'm taking now. And my second thing would mainly be practical experience. I noticed like in theory, a lot of textbooks do a very good job when it comes to like outlining different nuances that you face on the job. But I noticed like through the conversations I had with different professionals, it's like I don't have to reinvent the wheel. People went through it, and it's about just hearing their experience to sort of implement those small changes that can efficientize everything.
Yeah, I love that, Shor. Thank you for sharing. Going back to the first point around doing the research, the due diligence on companies, I think that's a really good point. What we've seen with this generation that's entering the workforce, not that previous generations didn't do this, but appreciating how companies' values tie back to your personal values. Beyond just what the compensation is, career path and trajectory, the values of a company is really, really important. And that's part of why at Morgan Stanley we talk about our values often. It's on the walls of all the floors, including our lobby, which is really important because we want to communicate those core values to align to the value system that potential candidates might have. Really appreciate that point, Shor. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to Alondra. Can we come to you? So as you mentioned in your opening comments, you're a Latino leader, you're at Colorado State University Pueblo. What did you wish you knew as you were beginning your college journey that could have helped you more effectively navigate those years?
Yeah, of course. So a little bit that you should know about me is that I wasn't originally going to go to college. And many of you guys know almost everyone in here is first gen, so that means that you're the first trailblazer in your family to go to a four-year institution. And for me, where I came from, I didn't think I could go to college because I had those stereotypes that if I were to go to college, I would be in debt. There's not a place for me in higher education because my parents didn't go. So I think that's one thing that I wish I would have known before, is to have more confidence in myself. And so actually, a professor at CSU Pueblo actually helped me enroll. And that's how my journey began. In addition to that, I wish I would have advocated for myself more, because I am capable of everything. I know if I could go back and tell little Alondra, you're going to be at United Nations conference, wow, she would not believe me. In addition to that, I would say, I would like for all the university presidents, as well as professors, people in higher education, to know that you should ask questions. Because a big thing that I learned within my 4 years at CSU Pueblo is that that student that doesn't show up to class, that doesn't do their homework, that might fall asleep at class, they're not a bad student. You don't really know who they are. Because that student who's sleeping in class, not turning in their homework, It could be that they're working 3 jobs trying to provide tuition, or they have family members who might be sick and they're taking care of them. You don't really know a student until you start making those connections. And so that's one of the big things that I advocate for as president, is making sure that I get to know all of my students to make sure that I can advocate for them correctly.
Yes. And while you're... You teased a little bit at the beginning, your background, where you're from. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from?
Yeah, of course. So I am originally from Mexico. My parents are migrants. They came to the United States when I was about 1 year old. Growing up, a little bit about me, I went to a predominantly white school. And growing up, I really didn't know who I was. My parents told me I was from Mexico, but when I go to school, I don't look like the other students. Growing up, I loved academics. I was always in honors programs. I was the vice president of my high school, which is Pueblo County. I was the S5 in JROTC. I was in DECA, as well as the National Honor Society. So I was very much involved. But how could it be that this student who is so involved could not see herself in college? Which was the big question. And growing up, no one really asked me, do you want to go to college? So that was another big factor of why I didn't think I could go to college. Until, like I said, I met that professor. She enrolled me without me even knowing. But that's something that I want to make sure, that other future Alondra never doubts herself, that she is capable of going to higher education. She is capable of getting her dream job.
Love that. I love that. Ayana, can we come to you? So you're a senior at Ramapo College, but you're also affiliated with GlobalMindED. Can you tell us a little bit about your connection to GlobalMindED?
Yes, of course. So I actually started this summer and was able to be gracefully extended to a fall internship with them. And I just had an amazing experience during the summer, not only learning about how the underworkings of social media works in terms of promoting nonprofits, but also what a nonprofit specifically does. Nobody realizes how much work a person has to go into to even start this type of organization. And this was said earlier, nobody understands fully the type of finances, the budgeting, the planning ahead of time that you have to do to make events such as this. So I do personally want to thank Carol for allowing me to be an intern at your organization. And I also do want to say too that we should all try to push to be not just interns at these big companies, but also try to be interns, if possible, at these nonprofits or various organizations that also are trying to help ourselves. Sorry.
Yeah. So as we said before, you're a senior. So thinking back to the beginning of your college experience, what were some early thoughts when you were coming to college, starting your first year, moving into your second year, that you could share with us?
You mean like advice I would give to?
Yeah, thinking back to like what you know now that could have helped you to navigate during your first year or two in college.
Mm-hmm. I would like to say for all the college students here who are still in their undergrad, if you have not already, my advice is to please talk to an advisor, find a mentor, some type of faculty that you can fall back on and you can discuss and collaborate with. I say this because when I came to my Ramapo College freshman year, I was just following the program. I was following the 4-year plan that they had given to me. And as we know, when you're a freshman, you come from an environment where people are telling you what to do. It may be teachers, it may be parents, but they're telling you what path you're supposed to follow. So when you go to college, you're supposed to be an adult, but you're so used to having people tell you what to do, you don't know what to do. So you just follow a plan that they give you for your major. And it wasn't until my fall semester sophomore year that I took one of my classes with my now mentor, Dr. Sandra Gonzalez, and she had pulled me aside and she said, "What do you want to do with your major?" And I had looked at her and I said, "I don't know. That's why I went to college. I'm just trying to follow what they're telling me to do." And she said, "That's not what college is for. College is for you to find yourself and to find something that you want your path to be. And it may be to help people, it may be to improve society and the world in terms of our environment, but whatever you're going to do, try to find somebody that you can collaborate with and you can talk with. Because that is the most important thing, to find somebody to fall back on with ideas, with failures, with successes, but anything that you can do to talk with somebody." So.
Thank you for sharing that. Peggy, let's come to you. So you're a senior at Harvard. Tell us a little bit about what you have been doing and what you plan to do when you graduate.
Yeah, of course. So just to start, I really appreciate today how honest everyone was, especially about their experiences being women in fields where there aren't a lot of women. So just for some context, I went to public school in New York. I was the only girl to take advanced math in my high school experience, and as the daughter of 2 Chinese immigrants, I was told growing up that math was like the only way to make it, right? And so I spent a lot of my time really honing like that side of myself, and all of a sudden I was in this classroom where there was just such a bro culture that I just no longer felt like I belonged doing something that I was pretty good at. And I think that really affected me because it made me realize that I didn't necessarily want to pursue this future where I couldn't see myself being happy at all. And it wasn't until I talked to another teacher about this, who was a woman, who told me, hey, you might be experiencing the sense of math anxiety that a lot of women experience, that I realized, oh my God, like, there's just so many parts of my world that have been sort of co-opted by the environments I'm in. And I tell this story because when I got to college, and Harvard no less, I really felt like it would be a place where I could bloom and pursue the interests I want to pursue, which was really specifically at the intersection of psychology and media and arts and technology. And I think what Harvard does really exceptionally well is that it gives people a lot of opportunities to get on paths and have them pretty well built out so that you can follow these paths and see down the line and see the ways in which you could be successful. But for me, I felt like I was going through like a repeat experience in high school a bit, where it felt like I couldn't quite see the path forward where I could check all the boxes in helping ensure that I could support a family, but also feel whole while doing it and being my full self with my full set of interests and passions. And as a result, I think at the end of my freshman year, I just felt this strong sense of, I see a future, but I don't necessarily feel hopeful and agentic towards the future. And I don't think people talk about enough how difficult it is to feel happy and to feel just like this is it, like this is the magic of life, when that is sort of the conception of what your future feels like. And so I think I had to do a lot of restructuring at the end of that year, where I just ended this very long reflection session. And I also, maybe this is too much information, but was going through a breakup at that time, so it was a great time to like really, really reset and think about what did I want out of life. And so in the beginning of my sophomore year, I kind of went back to my roots, and I started reading a lot of psychology papers on mindset, and I came across a set of papers that talked about how people come up with their future selves and authentic versions of their future selves. And it was a set of papers that showed that if you help people see their futures as really relatable, as similar and really vivid, that you could establish an emotional connection with the future that was actually tied to people's long-term sense of well-being, health, academic performance, absenteeism, all of these variables that were just so fascinating to me. And so I started building in my dorm room this way for people to talk to AI-generated versions of their futures, just as a sort of like story search space, to like take you outside of the narratives that you're used to, that you're being told by maybe the situations around you about success, and to find things that you might actually want to do, or people's stories who are really, really relatable and resonant. And that project kind of took off. I ended up having an opportunity to work with a psychologist who had published a lot of those papers. And together we ran a randomized controlled trial where we showed that just through this 30-minute interaction, people were able to experience a reduced sense of anxiety about their futures and also increased emotional connection. And from there, I started working with Teach for America for a summer, and I realized I was working with them on this program called Future Shock, which was all about helping high schoolers see their futures. And while working with high schoolers who are kind of very similarly expressing these sentiments of like, I want to feel excited about my future, but I instead feel really, really anxious, and I don't quite know where I'm going, and I just don't even like thinking about it because I don't even know where to start. I started realizing there was a way for maybe this technology to plug into a lot of the lived experiences of people in our generation. And if we could help people kind of envision those future stories better, maybe we can help people find the advisors that would resonate with them most, or the people on their campuses who are also the first in their families, or just in general, finding futures that they had never ever considered and could sort of start exploring and see as like a, wow, life, there's so many possibilities, right? So now we are working on trying to partner with schools, trying to work with people of all different life experiences to help facilitate these really impactful story connections and also advising connections. And I'm very happy to talk to you all about it more if you're interested.
So you haven't been up to much, is what I just gathered from all that. Just a concise. No, Peggy, that's really great to hear. And just, one of the points that you talked about, that inspiration and the mission behind your work, you talked about mental health. It is World Mental Health Day today, and it's just a great opportunity to call that out, destigmatizing the ability to talk about mental health and well-being is so important and critical to the future. So thank you for the work that you do. So let's go back to maybe all of you to kind of consolidate some of the thoughts that we've already heard today on this panel and in previous conversations throughout the day about what advice would you give to the college presidents, administration, deans that are in this room and not in this room to think about for the next generation that's coming into their institutions? We'll start with whoever wants to go first. Alondra?
I think some advice I would give is to be open-minded, mostly because our generation is thinking of new, innovative ways that might not align with traditional values. I know growing up, we would see how our parents would struggle with certain tasks, and we would find new, innovative ways to complete those same tasks in a less time. One of the biggest examples I can give nowadays is with AI. Back then, college students would have to read books that would take maybe 2 to 3 days to finish. But now we can just copy, paste, put in ChatGPT, tell me to give me the main points in less time. And that's something that we are discussing in our university. I know it's really a hot topic with AI, but kind of like how we said, we have to open our minds to be able to progress into the future.
I like that. It's not just on college campuses. I think, in my world, and maybe others that are in the corporate space are thinking about this as well, we do performance evaluations. And you get, what we do is a 360 feedback. So it's not just the manager evaluating the direct employee, but you're also getting feedback from 360 from your peers and others that you interact with. And all that information is being fed into a system. And now with AI, you can use it as a tool to help move it forward. You collect all this information, all this feedback, you use the AI tool to help summarize it, and then you review it. You might edit a few words. If it looks good, then you hit the submit button. That helps you to put your performance evaluations together. That's just one example, a real life example in the corporate landscape. So thank you, Alondra. Who would go next, John?
I'm using that hack in May when it's time for my 360.
We're rolling out gradually, John.
I think the conversations that I tried to have with my sister as she was starting her freshman year at Howard, as I was finishing my senior year, I would try to tell her, or try to have her pick her head up and look forward and think about how competitive meaningful careers really are. And I think that we're allowed to be brutally honest with the athletes in our community who we know exactly what it takes to compete at the highest level. I think we are a little bit softer when it comes to speaking to young people, young students who want to also pursue careers at the highest level. So that's what I'd say is if college presidents can, to have as many realistic conversations with their freshmen as possible.
Shark?
No, I definitely agree with what was said. And I think at the start of college, from at least what I've experienced, there's a very good job in terms of going over housekeeping, getting students through orientation and things of that sort. But what drew my attention a lot was the pre-professional clubs that were part of each college. And I think that's where like you find a lot of those copious networks when it comes to alumni or recruiting pipelines, everything of that nature. And I think as it's being improved now, spending a little bit more time in orientation, going through those specific clubs, that would have been really insightful for freshmen like myself when it comes to understanding the opportunities that are at our fingertips and just realizing it way more to be able to go through the process where it's not like later in our senior years we're like, okay, these clubs exist on campus. So that's definitely one thing. And I really want to commend college presidents in their recent like initiatives when it comes to peer mentoring programs. I definitely appreciate that a lot because as a freshman from high school to college, it's a huge difference. So those really help us get acclimated to things. But I would say that ensuring like we can amplify our efforts for coverage for every student rather than it just being like honor student, get peer mentors, and rest of students have way more limited availability with that. That's something which I think we could make more accessible.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Shart.
One set of advice I would give is to stop having college just be about degrees. And I say this because for as long as I can remember, college was seen as this area or symbol of discovering yourself and finding your path in the world. And this is dangerous that it no longer seems like this because our American public educational system is stagnant, in which the development of our society is not at the same level as our educational system. And it is actually ahead of our educational system. And so what's happening is these kids are just being taught to be thinking in just a logical way. And this is damaging their emotional intelligence, the way of communication skills, and also being able to understand various cultures and diversities. So when they come to college and they're not being taught this, it is further pushing them back and faltering them where they're tired of always being taught one way. They're tired of never being able to be understood for themselves, but also not being able time to find themselves or do things that they love. And it's just something that I think that needs to be brought up. It needs to be one of the forefronts of what colleges need to do to change. I come from a public liberal arts school, which is not one of many, and I was very grateful and thankful to be able to experience set of classes my first freshman year where I saw different cultures and discuss cultural sensitivity and diversity where I never knew, things that something my peer would have went through. But now that I know that, I am able to understand others and I'm able to, when I go into my career, I can communicate with them and I can say, hey, I see you, you see me. This is how we can collaborate and make a change in whatever career we're going into.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone said here. I would really encourage you all to invest in intergenerational relationships, whether that's between freshmen and seniors or sophomores and professors, just helping people find their people who will change their perspectives and their lives. Often just a piece of wisdom that just feels particularly relevant for a particular decision can really be the difference in what someone chooses as their path and their passion and their mission.
I want to take that response and, Shork, you mentioned, the connectivity and mentorship. We know we have formal mentorship programs. We benefit from informal mentorship, informal connections. And this can go to anyone on the panel. How have you benefited from informal connections that have materialized and developed into great relationships that have helped you either personally, in school, academically, or just in things in ways that you can better contribute to society?
Sure thing, Sam. I mean, I don't think our relationship started formally. I think you invited me to lunch during the 2-week period that I was in New York. The program was mostly virtual. And we started an informal relationship, but it's been immensely valuable for me because I think that even the formal mentorships that are supposed to derive value from this formal mentor, it ends up being sometimes inorganic. Whereas with you, I could pick your brain and hear things and get insights and heads ups. And you know, John, you might want to join this little community or this crew. And I think that that organic, natural relationships, informal relationships are extremely valuable. And I think our relationship is an example of that.
Oh, thanks, John. Ayana, do you want to go?
Yeah, so formal relationships oftentimes have a professional setting, and I think informal relationships are very important because they allow sort of a depth of risk-taking, where when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're piquing ideas, you can start arguments and debates. And I think that oftentimes people think that such things are not okay, but I think that's needed sometimes. You're supposed to talk to people who are different from you so you can gain different perspectives and ideas and thoughts that further inspire, new ways of innovation. And I think that when it comes to these informal relationships, where it's also from either, older generations to younger generations, I'm sure many of you have went through this where you're talking to your parents or you're talking to somebody from an older generation and you guys are kind of not seeing eye to eye, but it's needed because you can see where they're coming from and you say, okay, I see where you're coming from, but this is what I'm still lacking. So how can we both come together where we can find consensus? And I think that's why informal relationships are very important to have.
Thanks for sharing that. And we're going to continue to get comments from the panel here, but anyone in the audience, if you have questions that you'd like to ask our fellow panelists, get ready. We'll come to you in a second. But Peggy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I met a mentor who was kind of informal in high school. I don't even know how we really remember the beginnings, but I just remember our first meeting. She was just so outspoken, and she was just like the first person I met who just was really unafraid to be very boldly authentic about the things that she was going through in her life and like the struggles, but also her wins. She just like was very clear about what she was proud of that she did, and that level of just like, I am owning it. I have founded my own company. I have, been successful at that, and I'm not afraid to I don't want to hide those accomplishments. It showed me that there was a path forward where I could be sort of leading something or inventing my future in my own way that I had just never considered before. And so throughout the years, she's just been really, just by being herself, I think, a point of inspiration for me to really draw from her energy and to try to inhabit also that energy.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Alondra?
I would say in this room I have 3 people who I met informally, and because I met them, they have changed my life. The first person is actually 2 connections. The first person who ever invited me to the GlobalMindED United Nations is actually President Donna Souders. I remember meeting her during Hispanic Heritage Week at our college, and we just hit it off. She told me a little bit about her. I told her a little bit about myself and my background. And one day she just asked me, would you be interested in going? And I did not know what any of this was. I was like, this is new territory for me. I'm not sure. And she's all like, I think you'll love it. It gets to meet you with other passionate leaders and other people who want to make a difference in this world. And that's when she kind of got me. And so it was actually my first time coming to New York. I was terrified out of my mind. I've never left Pueblo by that point. And so she brought me, and thanks to that, I got to meet Carol as well as Janet, amazing people. And then she went and became president. And then from there, I actually met Celeste Molina, who's over there in the back. Celeste, if you can just raise your hand for me. I met her while I was doing DEI work, and I didn't know she worked at the same university. And I got to meet her, and she has been one of my greatest supporters, someone who always tells me that I can do whatever I want. Even at this moment, she supported me, making sure I have everything I need, that I'm cool, calm, and collected. So I want to thank you for that. And last but not least, I do have President Armando, president of our university, who has continued to support me and making me know that sometimes I do get imposter syndrome being a first gen. Sometimes I wonder if I'm even capable of being president, and he always tells me to be authentically myself, that I worked hard for everything I have, and that no one should have the right to tell me I'm not able to be in this position. And so I want to thank you for all the work you've done, not just for me, but for our students as well.
Thank you. we'll come back to our panelists with closing round robin advice. But any questions from the audience for our fellow students?
First of all, I'm super impressed with everyone on the panel, as I'm sure many of the folks are. Thank you. You give me hope for the future. I'm on the cusp of retiring, and my heart is filled listening to you because I feel really confident that the future is in good hands when I have the opportunity to hear a panel like this. But my question to you is specifically around the college classroom experience. And I want you to think back to the classroom experience. If you can think back to a math classroom experience, all the better. But what advice do you have about the classroom experience and how the classroom experience should evolve? And I have a second part of the question. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that inclusive classrooms and inclusive instructional and pedagogical practices can help improve students' experience in the college classroom. And I wondered if you had any reflections on things that worked for you, things that you might give guidance that we should evolve, maybe specifically the lecture experience, things of that nature. Any thoughts on the classroom experience, which is essentially what you bought when you paid for your college education? Any thoughts on the college classroom experience?
We'll just do 1 minute each.
Who would like to go first? Shurik?
For me, the college experience so far has been really well. I think I had my fair share of good professors, and I'm seeing other professors as well. But for me, what really clicks... But for me, what really clicks is being connected with a professor that really is interested in what they're teaching. And it feels like when they're going through their presentations, I remember one of my professors, Ken Abbott, he every presentation he would have slides, and he wouldn't not only go through the slides, but he would also talk about how during his time working in that field itself, some of these came into picture. And even though those weren't really related to class material, it felt like those anecdotes made me hopeful that, wow, the things I'm learning, it's actually going to be applicable to things. Even if different firms have different ways of approaching things, just having that professor that was, for lack of a better term, a practitioner in the field, really connecting each slide with stuff they did before, that really clicked for me.
John?
So my last classroom experience wasn't 2 years ago when I graduated. It was actually the other day when my sister was helping me move out. She was taking a class on Zoom, and I was listening to them have a conversation. I think they were discussing some James Baldwin short essay, and I was so interested in the conversation. I said, Dale, let me jump on this Zoom, and I want to share my thoughts. And it ended up...
Did you pay for the class?
I paid a lot of money to that university, I can tell. But ended up having a really interesting conversation with the students and with the professor. It was a heated debate, but the students really enjoyed it. I saw affirmation in the group chat that my sister showed me about the class afterwards. But what I think was, what I wish I knew then, what I know now, and what I hope to one day tell these students is that what you're doing now is so cool, because now, as an analyst, and I'm going to have to head to the desk after this, I wish that I could spend an hour and a half or two every week discussing these kind of ideas, these topics. Really don't take it for granted. Don't just sit back with your Zoom camera off. Try to engage, because it's so much fun, it's so cool. So I don't know how a classroom can kind of try to message that. Maybe bring guys like me in to do it for you, but that's what I would do.
So leaning in, right? Leaning into the college experience, the classroom experience is what I heard from your comments, John. And maybe Peggy, last comment.
Yeah, I would say classes that really emphasize lived experiences as a starting point for perspective taking. The arts classrooms are a great place for this, mainly because you're often working with materials that you've never worked with before, so there's no one who has a knowledge advantage over anyone else, and sort of everyone is subjected to this mode of playing. And the starting point for most people in the arts is, what personal experiences can I draw from that will inform what I make? And I think those are great starting points for a conversation, because you will have people start to relate over, the same things that they've experienced, or even different things, and find a lot of interest in that. And then as you learn together, you're co-constructing this knowledge, and you're starting from a place of like collaborative knowledge sharing that just creates this sort of very open environment for learning and for messing up. So an example is I took this class called Making Things, Breaking Things, where the entire semester we just like made things with paper and then like ripped them apart. And I think it's just teaching you just the flexibility in thinking that you can sort of adopt, especially when you come to college. Often you don't even know what you don't know, right? And so it also helps you develop this humility towards life experiences that you perhaps will never be able to fully relate with, but can empathize with through that process of discourse and creating together. I think the last point also I would make on this is, beyond curricular environments, I think extracurricular environments are a great place to encourage people to just plop themselves into spaces that they might not understand or fit in at first, and to actually build extracurricular environments that are meant for like interdisciplinary exploration or intercultural exploration, to make that value explicit. So we run a couple of programs, my friends and I, where we just bring together students from all different backgrounds, and we say like, create something together. And those have been spaces where a lot of students have said, before doing this, I just didn't realize that there are people who could think that differently from me. And so just from that, I think teaching people early on through curricular and extracurricular activities that are there are different ways of thinking, knowing, and being would be really important just for all of learning in general.
What a great way to wrap up. Thank you, Peggy, John, Alondra, Shayak, and Ayana. Thank you very much for being with us today. These are our future leaders, everyone. Let's give it up.
Yeah, let's stand up for these folks, because one of the things I'll say is each one of them stepped up to the plate when they didn't really know what this all was. Like Peggy's friend Lizzie recruited her, Ayana jumped in, like everyone jumped up and in, not really knowing. And a lot of learning and leading is about jumping in when you don't know what it's going to look like, and you just have to participate and trust. So awesome job, and everyone is going to be looking forward to talking to you all at the reception. I'll just be telling you that much. And we're close to that reception. We're very much in for a wonderful closing session before we hear some parting words from Dr. Kimberly McLean for all of us. But Rep 4 is one of our partners and one of our sponsors. And I had the privilege of meeting them a few years ago through Elizabeth at ASU GSV. Philly, some of you met last year, president of Grand Valley State University. And they are all about putting the student's voice at the center of every process to transform higher education. And I got the great honor to go to Boise State University with them last year and be on their turf with the wonderful President Marlene Trump, who's on the panel, and we're just really delighted to welcome them up to the stage. So if you guys can cruise, we'll bring you guys up and we'll keep on our time frame. And we're going to welcome Dr. Jesse Bernal to the stage. Come on up.
Please ask our president panelists to come up as well. President Randall and President Echambadi, is he still here? Maybe he ran to the restroom. Okay. We'll get started, and I think.
I messed up the time, I think. Well, okay. We'll have a little break.
Should we? Do you want to?
You know what? It's going to be closer to the reception, so we'll just, if you need to go to the restroom, we'll just go, but we just kind of went right through that break. So, well, that means reception will be earlier.
We're waiting on Raj to come, so he may have taken the break. Yeah, so maybe we'll take a second. Breaks weren't allowed, President Echambadi. I'm sorry. Gosh. So want to thank Carol for inviting us to join this really great event. We've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years. As Carol said, my name is Jesse Bernal. I work at Grand Valley State University, which is in West Michigan. It's one of the largest regional comprehensive universities in the Midwest. I'm the Vice President for Strategy and Chief of Staff to our President, Philomena Mantella, whose name you've heard a couple of times today. Thank you, President Echambadi. We've texted her already. She appreciates it. So as Carol said, many of us have come together under an alliance called REP4, which stands for Rapid Educational Prototyping for Change, for Community, for Equity, and for Learners. It really focuses on higher education institutions, putting the power of educational transformation and building systems for equity in the hands of learners. And when I say learners, these are high school students who are telling us as higher education administrators and directly to our presidents that I have an idea on how I can make something I've never even experienced better. And would you try it out? And they all say yes all the time, which is really fantastic and has been a fun journey over the last several years. The Alliance is 9 institutions across the US representing over 300,000 students. 50% of those students are low income, 50% of those students are first gen, about 50% of those students are students of color. And this is I think, a neat space to end with a panel. So we started with some of our association presidents who talked about the challenges of higher education. I will say in getting to know these presidents, they are the presidents that are bringing the brave solutions to higher ed. They are trying new things out. They are testing models that are cutting edge, and they are focusing on centering equity and innovation for student success. They're really driving, we've heard a lot of talk around student-centeredness. These presidents talk about student empowerment and really allowing students to lead institutional work on behalf of our communities. So let me quickly introduce them, and then I'll have them share a little bit more about themselves. To my immediate left is President Marlene Trump from Boise State University, the largest public university in the state of Idaho. And then we have President Elaine Neufeld from Cal State San Marcos, which many of you know is in San Diego County, and also a Hispanic serving institution. We have President Monte Randall from the College of the Muscogee Nation in Oklahoma, a tribal college. And you've met him, President Raj Echambadi from Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. So, I, as a chief of staff to a president, I know never to surprise them, but I've been inspired to ask a question that we didn't prep for. So I'm gonna see who's ready for this, and then my boss isn't here, so I can't get fired unless they text her or something like that. But so thinking about, and particularly because we have so many students here, thinking about your own college journey, what was a pivotal moment that really shaped your perspective or your journey so that we learn a little bit about you as leaders? And maybe tie that to the broader context of this conversation. Like, how has that then prioritized your work in centering student voice in decision-making as presidents today? Anybody want to start with that? President Trump?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your stamina. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a part of this project, and I'm so honored to be a part of this conversation with GlobalMindED. I'm a first-generation college student. I grew up in a small town in Wyoming, and when I went to apply for college, I couldn't afford the application fees. And so my guidance counselor used my transcripts, which he had access to. This could only have happened in the early 80s. And he asked me for a copy of the essay I had written in my English class, and he applied to college for me. And I got 7 full ride scholarships. And he brought me to his office, and he showed me these letters, and he said, "This is the place I think you should go." And it was a very elite private. And he handed me the letter, and he had me take it home. And I went home to my dad. We weren't allowed to talk to him till after dinner. I remember what we were having for dinner that night. My dad was a hunter. It was elk. And I remember what I was wearing, and I had this letter in my hands, and I handed it to him. My dad was a coal miner and Toronto miner. And my dad wanted me to go to college. And he looked at the letter, and he read it quietly after he finished cleaning his plate. He read the letter quietly, and then he folded it back up, and he handed it to me He thought it was like a publisher's clearinghouse sweepstakes letter. And he said, and this was a full ride scholarship, books, tuition, housing, everything. And he said, honey, how do I know we're not going to get you all the way across the country to the East Coast, and this is going to turn out not to be real? And then you're going to be some kid from Wyoming who has no way to get home. And I was 17 at the time, and he wouldn't sign for the scholarship. So I had to start from scratch. And the only thing I could afford was to go to the local community college. And my neighbor across the street was a guidance counselor. And she marched over to my house and she said, this is crazy. You can't, at that time, community colleges were really just technical schools. This was before you could use them as a leaping off point to go to university. She said, you have to go to university. And she said, what was your father's problem? And I explained it to her. So she literally put a compass in the world, or in the US Atlas on Green River, Wyoming, and then spun it around to see where we could drive to and back in one day. And she paid for me to apply to all those schools in that zone. And my application came in so late that the school I went to had to call me on the phone to tell me so that I could get in my car and drive there before classes started. But it took so many people to get me to college, and I loved school. And my parents wanted me to go to school. And I think about that every single day when I'm in my office as university president. And it helps me understand that we have to serve rural students because that's one of our underserved populations. So we take socioeconomic class, we take underrepresented minorities, we take kids that live in rural communities are one of our underrepresented populations. There's so much talent out there, and we need to get those kids to school.
Wow, thank you for telling that, because that inspires me. And to our students that were just up here, you know, I know as the university president that I learn more from students every day than I could ever teach. I also know that you are the change that our world needs to see. And I'm so grateful. It's hard to follow you, but I am so grateful that you were up here. And so thank you for that. So for me, I have to acknowledge the privilege of my journey. I am first born in this country, but my father went to college. He and my mother, both of their families, they were German Russian Mennonites living in what was then the Soviet Union, for many of them what is Ukraine now. And they were escaping. They couldn't get into the US, so they went to Canada, and they were tenant farmers working off of other people's land. And somehow and some way, my father was the first generation student in my family, and he ended up at Mennonite Bible College in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and he kept going. I think about that because it's not lost on me that in one generation, his daughter is a college president in a profession that is not, certainly not majority women, about 30%, and that happened in one generation. So I think about the social mobility of that. For me personally, on my journey, I was the youngest in the family of my wonderful, beautiful Mennonite family. My parents' first language was German, and as many say, we didn't feel like we fit in rural Tennessee, where my father had his job. And I grew up with so much privilege for the fact that he had a degree, and I was shy, and I got to go back to my undergrad, Tennessee Tech University in Middle Tennessee, and I got to give a talk, and I said to them, nobody would have said in my high school yearbook, most likely to succeed at anything. It just wouldn't have happened. I think for my family, it was not so much about that I would go to college as would I ever find my way to anything. The idea of college was there, but I was shy. I didn't have a lot of personal agency at all. And I remember that I was, at my time at the university, after 3 times trying, I somehow became with a friend an orientation leader. And in the summer, when we were working with the parents, they would put students up on a panel. And one day, the panelists didn't show up. And that poor advisor to the orientation leaders walked the room. I was the one that would, pick up the cups and the plates and walk around in the back of the room and kind of hide out. That poor advisor walked the room more times than once trying to find people for the panel, walking by me. We were both in agreement on that idea. and so finally, there was nobody else. And she said, she came back and acknowledged that I was in the room and that that's something that she needed me to do. And I remember getting up on that panel and I was asked to describe, I was the only one that lived in housing. That's what everybody wanted to know about. The housing there was disgusting. And I loved it. And I described how much I loved it and how you could make it not disgusting. And that was the beginning of a journey where I began to find my voice. Yeah, and she became a mentor to me. I've had a chance in life to go back and thank people that have helped me on the journey. And while she's not in a place where I can thank her right now, to go back to the university that I graduated from and give voice to her was a very special moment for me. For she was that unsung hero that did that work and helped me think about that. Now, the journey to a presidency, my gosh, thinking we could graduate from college was really miraculous, and to even think, I could be employed and live on my own was really fantastic. So there are many other steps and places and stumbles along the way, but I'm always grateful to her as one of those great steps on that journey that helped me find my voice. And to my parents, who, for the German Mennonites where they grew up, they lived a radical life. I didn't know that, and really helped me step out to be able to sit here today. Thank you.
Estongo, Albika, Talladega, Amadowat, Momen, Ijo Ogi Doez, Jo Ili Hajoji Chahojif Kados, Momen, Muskogi Adowa, Nakchoga Mahaga, Sahawija, Emikados. Greetings, everyone. I introduced myself in the Muskogee language and in a traditional fashion that I let you know that I am from the Albika Talladega tribal town of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and I'm Deer Clan, and that my Muskogee warrior name is Joe Ely Hajoji, and my English name is Monty Randall. I'm the president of the College of the Muskogee Nation in Oklahoma, and I want to acknowledge the Haudenosaunee people and all the indigenous people that the lands that we're on today. Thank Global Mind for this opportunity, GlobalMindED for this opportunity as well. My journey and to get to where I am today. And the turning point for me in my life, coming out of high school, I went directly into the military. My older brother, I'm the youngest of 3. My older sister, she got the opportunity. She's a first-generation college student. I'm a first-generation college student as well. But my older sister got the opportunity to go to college right out of high school, and that's kind of what my parents had told me. At that time, and for me and my older brother, we kind of got 2 choices. We were either going to go to work or we were going to go to the military, and those were really the only 2 options that we had at that time. And so both me and my older brother went into the military. We both served in the United States Navy, and after I got out, I really hadn't planned on going to college. I wasn't prepared for college. I really wasn't looking for that route. And fortunately, I did sign up for the GI Bill, and I was able to use the GI Bill at several state institutions in Oklahoma with some success at times, but then really just not a lot of success in those institutions. And eventually I transferred on to Haskell Indian Nations University in Lawrence, Kansas. And so that was an Indian boarding school at one time in the 1800s. That was a children's Indian boarding school. And then later it became a high school. And then later it became a technical school. And my parents actually went to Haskell Institute whenever it was a technical school. So they went out of high school and they received their trade skills. And then later on, Haskell became a junior college and then a university. And so I attended whenever it was a university. And like my experience at the other state schools, I had some good experiences. I had some good times where I was finding success, but then kind of fell back into old habits, and there were times where I didn't do so well at Haskell. And what my turning point really was a Muskogee elder who was at Haskell. And he went with my parents, actually. He knew my parents. He went up there and he learned the skill of being a painter. And he continued to work at Haskell, and he was in the maintenance department later on, and then he retired, and then he kind of volunteered, and that's sort of the nature of Haskell. People kind of just hang around up there. So he continued to be up there, and he was a sponsor for a student organization, and like I said, he knew my parents, and he kind of knew who I was, so he scooped me up and would talk to myself and some of the other young men that were up there that were kind of in the same situation at times, and so he talked to us in our language, and talked to us about our ceremonies, and talked to us about our churches, and just really mentored us in a cultural way. And while I had received that at times, it was just maybe just that opportunity or being in that situation where I was that really got me connected to my Muskogee culture and my language. And so that was really my turning point for me at that time at Haskell Indian Nations, and I continued on to get my associates and my bachelor's there, and was able to continue on to my graduate work after I came back to Oklahoma. And one of the things, really for my success, like many, I never would have imagined I would be a president of a college. With a doctorate degree, never in my wildest dreams would I had imagined to be doing that. But what I did imagine though was learning my language and my culture and doing that as a full-time profession. And so while I run the College of the Muskogee Nation, we also mentor our youth in our culture and our language. And so some days it's really the best job in the world where I get to practice our culture and speak our language, and then other days I have to be a president. But so.
That was a drop the mic moment.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up in India, and like most Indian kids of my generation, there were only two career paths possible in front of us, being either a doctor or an engineer. And I chose engineering because I was good in math. And I got into a very good school, the oldest engineering institution in Asia. I was a mechanical engineer by training. But college was incredibly difficult for me because and it's not the fault of the university by any stretch of the imagination. Now when I look back, it is just the educational system in India at that point in time, and where it was like they wanted to strip you of your ego and rebuild you over a 4-year period, kind of. And so thankfully, there were a couple of faculty mentors who got me through, because I didn't hate my 4 years, but I was fairly close to it, But thanks to my teachers and so on, I was able to do reasonably well in college, though I didn't know it at that point in time. I got into a tractor company, Massey Tractors in India, as a service engineer. So one of the things that people will never guess about me today is at one point in time in my life, I could disassemble and assemble a tractor back, you know. Yeah, I could. And now, of course, I can't even hang a picture frame in the wall, on the wall. But of course, that's by design, so that my wife doesn't ask me to do things. But anyway, I was in that tractor company. I was a service engineer. We had a training center, and I was working closely with a person who turned out to be a mentor. And he was the one who said to me one day, he said it in Hindi, he said, "Beta, you will make a good academic." And to my regret, eternal regret, because he passed away soon thereafter, I never asked him if it was a compliment. But he's the guy who told me, hey, you want to be good and you want to be excellent, go study in the United States, because it is the best in the world, and it will enable you to not only become excellent, but it will also enable you to understand your own capabilities. And one thing I want to provide here is my 4 years of engineering education in India, at that point in time, cost me about $200 US. I was a commuter student, therefore I was fairly inexpensive for my parents, and and I was fully funded by the US university, and therefore when I look back, I realize how blessed I was to have had the access and to have had the affordability, to not spend anything in higher education, which has not only enabled my social and economic mobility, but also the economic mobility for my children. But there were two things that I learned, and when I look back, if I were to write my autobiography, and my children constantly remind me, it'll be a bestseller only in our house. It'll be Patterns in Serendipity. I took a lot of chances came to me because I was exposed. Somebody in the morning talked about networking as your net worth. I think that is absolutely true. But when I reflect back, there are two things that I am reminded of beyond the access to college and higher education. One is, looking back, I realized I didn't feel like I belonged in college. Later on, I realized everyone in my class felt the same way, it's just that we never talked to each other about it, right? So that is one part. And the second part is the importance of mentors. When I think about the faculty mentor, or when I think about the mentor at my job who said, go to the United States. Again, I came to the United States in 1994 when there was no internet. So you need to know somebody who knew somebody, how to apply, and so on. So I was incredibly fortunate. I'm probably the most blessed person in the world, except when I have to be a college president, but that's a different issue. But so those two things I've made sure I have incorporated in whatever I do. How do I inculcate a sense of belonging in all our students? And the second is, how do I ensure that students have mentorship at multiple levels, be it a faculty mentor, be it a career mentor, be it a peer mentor. So those are the two things I would say that I've learned from my life.
Great. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and showing some bravery and being authentic leaders. I mean, this is such an important part of the work we get to do and working alongside students. So what we're going to do is each of our presidents will be able to share a little bit more about their institutions in the context of centering student voice and also in advancing employer-ready skills post-graduation. And then I'll see if any of you have questions, and then we'll let folks have a final comment as well. For President Trump, Boise State has a really strong focus on the workforce and economic development. Can you share a little bit about the strategies that you have in place to ensure that students are graduating with the right skills and experiences they need to be career ready? And also, if you could share a little bit, to the earlier comment I think Lizette made about sort of that companies right now own the taxonomy of jobs for the future, a little bit about the work you're doing in relationship with industry to build those programs together.
Thank you, Jesse. First, I want to reflect on something that Ayanna said when she was up here when the students were on stage, which was amazing, by the way. It used to be, I'm a Victorianist, it used to be that you got a degree in classics or in history or in literature and you went on to be a bank president. That's how it worked. That was what you got your degree in. And when you're a first generation student like I am, my dad actually participated in supporting me in my education until I decided to be an English major. And he literally cut me off. And my senior year, because he thought, I went to college pre-med. I went into my senior year working 3 jobs full time, so that I was working like 80 hours a week so that I could pay for school and finish my senior year. And it wasn't because he was trying to hurt me, it was because he thought I'd gone insane. And he was trying to save me from myself. But we have to help students find their pathway to a career studying in the fields they love. It's not just about giving them professional connections, but helping them imagine themselves in a career. And Jenny talked about this AI program that she has developed to help students imagine themselves, their future selves. We need to do that as a part of the curriculum. So we're striving to build that career reflection into the degree programs so that they're thinking about that in their freshman year, in their major classes, in their senior capstone, all the way along. And that's really transformational because you don't want somebody 2 weeks from commencement going, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea where I'm headed. You want them to have a big way of imagining what they're doing with their lives when they're studying and all along their process of study. And that's going to take mentors, that's going to take their faculty thinking about those things with them. And so we're trying to do a lot of that partnership work. We started in high school because we partner with Micron, which is the semiconductor industry. Micron was founded in Boise, and so they have a big footprint in Boise. And we have, with the CHIPS Act, which was designed to help us produce semiconductors in the US, which are fundamental to every piece of technology you have. We created a program through our Rep 4 project called Chip Chip Hooray that gets that thinking into high schools. So, I always say that the 2 things students are the most afraid of is math and poetry. Because those are areas where they think they don't have access or they think they don't belong. And so we have to challenge them to imagine themselves in those areas and to think forward in those ways. But we also have to bring students, mentors into the academic environment. We have to challenge them to be a part of those STEAM fields. And I'm really proud that our Math Learning Center, we've heard a lot of people say today that math is often the barrier class. Our Math Learning Center won 2 national awards last year because it helps students imagine themselves in math fields. And so we've got to figure out what are the ways we can help students over those hurdles. We need students to take classes in cybersecurity, in semiconductor industry, even if they're an English major like I was, so that they can open up the prospects. Google hired, when I was at UC Santa Cruz as the provost, Google hired their first ever resident humanist with a doctorate in literature. Because we know we can help these tech companies think bigger if they have people with a variety of academic areas. I partnered with a cybersecurity company, and they focused on social science majors and humanities majors because they know we'll catch more cybercrime if we have people that aren't just trained in CS. In computer science. And so we've got to think bigger and think better. Higher ed needs to evolve, and we need to help industry evolve in who it's looking at to hire, and we need to help our students imagine themselves in fields that will give them great careers going forward. And I think Rep 4 is one of these amazing projects that's helping us teach universities, teach industry, and teach our students to evolve.
Thank you so much. So, President Neufeld, you talked a little bit about the growth of agency in your own journey, and Cal State San Marcos is certainly a leader in student engagement, building student agency. Can you share a little bit more about how you elevate student voice and how you ensure that they are connected to and really engaged in the university's work?
Yes, absolutely. So Cal State San Marcos, we are about 17,000 students in North San Diego County. We are obviously Hispanic serving. Only over 50% of our students are Hispanic, and we also have many undocumented. And we're about 70% students of color. About 55% of our graduates this past year were first in their families to walk across the stage. And in our strategic plan, the vision is to be a national leader in social mobility. Actually, the vision is for every university to be a national leader in social mobility. This is not something we want exclusively for ourselves in moving forward. And the thing that I feel is such a gift about the university that I serve, there's many things. One is we're about 35 years young. And we grew up with our community. And so we are very connected with the San Diego Regional EDC, and also our K-12 partners in the future of our region and our county. And one of the things that we know in our region is that we need, through the San Diego Economic Development Committee, is that we need about 20,000 people a year with college degrees to fill the future workforce. One of the things that I'm sure many of us know is the population shrinking everywhere in our globe. And it's shrinking in California, too. I think California thought that was something that might never happen, but it is happening. And so making sure that we are looking at that inclusive economic growth in partnership with our community is so important. And our students have to be at the center of that. You know, when I think philosophically about higher ed, and that Harvard, the first 9 people that graduated from Harvard graduated in order of status in their family. And that continued for the next 150 years, right? Higher education was built for middle and upper class white males. And while I have nothing against middle and upper class white males, my ex-husband is a middle and upper class white male. Nothing against them at all. You know, it is obviously we're missing out on the talent and the beauty of our world if we don't recreate higher education. But obviously, we're missing out on the future economy. And so to do that, the students have to be at the center and the voice of that, because our system, my system, and my university, as much as everyone else, we have to fight against all of the things that were not built for what higher education needs to be today, for the inclusivity of where we need to go for our universities and our communities as a whole. And so we start with partnering with our school districts in the 3rd grade. And the school buses come on campus, and they come right below my office. I can hear the noise, I can see the school bus, I can hear the megaphone welcoming those students onto campus. And one of our student government presidents introduced me at one of the speeches I give. She said, my first experience in thinking about college was a 3rd grade field trip right here at Cal State San Marcos. And she'd never thought about a university. So we know we have to start with the voices of our students in the 3rd grade. Many times in higher ed, we don't think of them as our students. But these are our students. And when we think about the pandemic and what's happened for students, it's even more important to double down on that. We have 23 of what we call MOUs, most recently with San Diego County, obviously the largest school system, but also with our tribal communities. And that looks different than it might with the MOU with San Diego County. And in talking with leaders in our Black community who were graciously, very critically frank with me, we started together the Coalition of Black and African American Education and formed an MOU there with our pastors, the leaders of business leaders, the head of our NAACP, to again bring those voices to the forefront and find them a path not only into our university but through it. And from there, when we think about students coming in and finding their way in, we do have a success coaching program where our students really are the architect of their goals. That is really important, and that program is evolving for us. And it is not about giving the student a formula. It is about helping the students define their own formula. And so that program is evolving with us, and it's very important. We have students in, as many higher ed institutions do, on every committee, from whether we're talking about our budget or our foundation board. And most recently, we decided that we were going to, in the last few years, look at every one of our policies through an equity lens. Because it really has to be about forming processes with the end user in mind. And bluntly, most of us are guilty of not, we have the best of intentions, but we didn't do it with the end user lens. And in that, one example, and this is just a small one, but it's who has opportunity, right? So we needed to relook at our travel policy for students, because how many students can front pay to be able to come to something like this and get reimbursed on the back end of that? Another area that we needed to look at were things of who had access to that experiential learning that's so important. Right? Paid internships is key, but who gets to work in our labs in the summer? We have a summer scholars program. Well, if you have to work at McDonald's or anywhere else to pay for your tuition, as you did, or as I did, then how in the world are you going to work and be a part of our labs? So through grants and fundraising, remember we have students on the foundation board, we're raising the stipends, the place to live, and we're making it a job for our students to work in our labs. And a few years ago, one of my favorite lab visits was when I went in and people were grinning. And I had been in this lab a year before, and people seemed scared I was in the lab, but they were grinning, so I thought it was just me. Maybe they were used to me, it wasn't so bad. But they had found a marker for alopecia areata, and 12 of our undergrad students were writing this up for publication. They were advancing something so important and that was really about the future of our world, and they were having an opportunity as undergrads that bluntly at many universities are saved for master's and graduate students. They had a voice in how this lab ran. Students let us know they needed access to these labs in a different way, and so they were moving that forward. And it's amazing. The last time, I just had to say AI while I was up here. The last time I was in a lab, we had students working on AI replica of a wind farm to make sure that looking at, this is not the way to say this for the geniuses in the room, the glitches that happen in a wind farm, and working to, they didn't use the term glitch, but to use that and work through it. So all of those things are about how students are really at the center. I probably almost had this microphone too long, but I'm going to keep it a little bit longer. You just never give a president a microphone. Just really quick, because I know my colleagues have so many wonderful things to share. They've also helped us develop 3-year degree programs. They helped us bring engineering to bear. And so we have a 3-year transfer program in software engineering, and we're just bringing on a 3-year mental and behavioral health program that embeds certificates. So these students will be able to have a living wage billable for insurance when they graduate as an undergrad in mental and behavioral health. And this is going to take some of the strain off the mental health field. And our students are helping us design this. I'm about to go advocate for the schematics for a new integrated science and engineering building in our next board meeting. The thing I'm going to have to really advocate the most is that our students in the design process said we need student spaces, because 50% of our engineers are Hispanic. National average is about 15%. And 30% of our software engineers are military affiliated and veterans. We serve 1 out of 10 of our students as military affiliated. And they said that we have to set up this building differently to find that sense of belonging in this field. And we have to have these student spaces in this building. That is not efficient in the way you build an academic building. And in this tight budget, I'm going to have to fight hard for that. And I'm probably going to bring a student with me to really articulate that and make sure that we get that across the line. With that, I'm going to give pause because I know there are more people to speak today.
So Carol's giving me a quick time check, but we're going to finish with really two quick questions for our last two presidents. President Randall, tribal colleges offer a lot for us to learn, and in particular, I'm just wondering if you can share how your college is equipping students to really proudly lead with both their cultural identities and in the professional workspaces they navigate that. And what do other colleges have to learn from tribal colleges that we really should be paying attention to?
Yeah, thank you. You know, a lot of the tribal colleges, like we have unique missions, and like most of us, our mission focuses on maintaining and asserting our tribal sovereignty. And so that's a big part of what I mentioned earlier about our cultural heritage and our language. That has a big part in our identity, which asserts and reinforces our tribal sovereignty, who we are, the federal status that we have, that unique status that we have as a political institution. So that's that's the main focus for us. And as we talk about, you know, social mobility, that's what gives us that leverage as tribal nations. Is the first thing, you know, the first priority of our tribal nation is to continue and to maintain our tribal sovereignty. And so in doing so, that's what our College of the Muskogee Nation, and like I said, most tribal colleges, that's what our mission is for. And so that has a lot of different aspects. That has, as I already mentioned, the cultural and the language aspect, but there's the other aspects of economic development and tribal law, running our tribal service programs, you know, staffing, you know, preparing those students and those graduates to move into the tribal service programs that our nation runs. You know, the criminal justice side, the law enforcement, economic development, as I mentioned, those have a huge impact on who we are and the services that we can provide to our nation and to our people. You know, and while I'm focusing on our specific citizenship, you know, well, the one thing too is that we're also citizens of our state. We're also citizens of the United States. So everything that we do directly impacts our cities and our counties and our states and the nation as a whole. So by us being leaders in economic development within our counties, you know, we're also leading and we're also helping to prepare, you know, the public school systems within our reservation, the public school systems and you know, within the cities that we operate in. So, you know, that's the focus for us, is to you know, first focus on that tribal sovereignty, which extends to so much more within the state and the nation as a whole.
Thank you, President Randall. President Echambadi, so already know you're an AI expert. We're going to move to a different topic for you today, but really, I mean, IIT has been nationally ranked in your work around social and economic mobility, right, the large portion of underserved and low-income students that you have. What is IIT doing in the intersection of access and equity? And can you also share what you think is like the most urgent or pressing issue around equity that higher education leaders are facing today?
Perfect, thank you. Actually, I sent this question to ChatGPT, and here is my response from ChatGPT.
It was written by ChatGPT too, so it's just going to keep going.
So very quickly, Jesse, our university was founded in 1890 on a very noble vision to educate students from all walks of life, because in 1890, our first president, a minister of a church, felt that if we did not educate the children of Chicago's meat packers, steel workers, and machinists, they will never be able to integrate into the industrial society. And the story goes, he goes to his church and says, if only I had $1 million, I could do this. And thank God there was somebody in the audience with $1 million, and we were born. And true story, it's called $1 Million Sermon, and that's how we were born. So for 35 years, we have done that. We are number one in the state of Illinois in terms of moving people from the bottom 20th percentile to the top 20th percentile. Bloomberg Philanthropies called us one of 29 high flyer institutions, fundamentally not only for our access, 40% of our students are Pell eligible and or first generation with a 92% success rate. And we are a technology university. And so fundamentally, what we have done is created a platform called Elevate, which effectively means we mandate experiential learning for our students so that they can be job ready. And we have utilized our students in a variety of ways, including how to do peer mentorship, how to design our career mentorship, faculty mentorship, etc., and have a lot more agency. So we have moved, and Rep 4 has helped us move from what I would call as institutional priority driven to co-created with the student idea. So you asked me about the barriers. One of the things that I worry about in this current era is as you are moving into this fourth phase of the Industrial Revolution, the problem that we had in 1890 is here right now. If we don't educate students from all walks of life, if we don't dismantle the digital divide, if you will, and provide access and affordable education to children from all walks of life, I think we are going to be in great danger for the inequality and so on. There are, as you saw in this panel, we are a set of diverse institutions that are doing the best that we can to bring access and affordability for our students. And to me, we need to continue to do that. We should reject the exclusivity paradigm of certain schools and then go towards inclusive. The more people we bring in, the better off we are going to be as a society, and we should never lose focus of that particular vision.
Great. Sounds like a good call to action to end on, so let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you so much.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And it was so inspiring to hear the personal stories of each of you. And I know a lot of people are going to have questions during the reception. So I want to go ahead and bring up the Honorable Dr. Kimberly McLean. Some of you may have met her. Last year, she was one of our panelists and featured speakers, and she played a big role in June. She's the number 2 person. Oh, you know what? It just means we're making a difference. So I think it's auspicious, it's a good sign. So we're just going to take it as that. But anyway, she is the number 2 ranking person at HUD, and she is veteran from the Air Force at one of the highest levels. And you're going to be seeing this person a lot in the decades to come, but we're delighted she's part of our leadership, and she's going to come up for a few minutes and talk about how all of us can measure the impact of this day in our actions following in the next year and the rest of the decade ahead. So let's give her a big round of applause. And also want her for at least 2 minutes to share her remarkable story as an amazing first-gen success story. So come on up, thank you, and then I'll wrap us up.
All right. Well, I am standing between everyone and snacks and beverages and whatever else that you choose to do. So I think that it's apropos, if I got it right in the room of academics, being an academic and a whole bunch of other things, that we break glass. I say that ironically. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit because Carol and I, unbeknownst to one another, both share the same little breaking glass symbol, which is it's a hammer. For me, it really means breaking down every single wall and barrier to the challenges of life. So I bring you greetings. Well, first, I thank Carol. Carol tracked me down in Colorado, and as everyone knows, no one can say no to Carol, and I've been saying yes for years after that. So thank you, Carol, for just being this amazing human being and bringing together everyone that sits in this room. You are truly an inspiration to us. And we're definitely a big team. And we're a team. Absolutely. Janet, Celeste, everybody's here, so just truly thank you. I bring you greetings on behalf of President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the entire HUD family. It is absolutely my honor and pleasure to be here. Carol gave me 2 minutes. She knows I can never talk for 2, but I will try because otherwise she'll give me that look. My story is no much different than the rest of everyone sitting in this room. I am a 5th generation military member. I served 29 years, 10 months, 2 days, not that I'm counting, in the Air Force Reserve. Thank you. But I was also blessed to have a parallel career that really started at McDonald's. I can do fries. I've worked at Hardee's for all of us Midwest people. That didn't last long, trust me. And I even got grounded for getting my first job. My parents weren't having it. My job in life was to go to school, get good grades, do what I'm supposed to do, not give my mom too much grief. She's a school teacher. None of that happened. I did everything opposite. But what I will tell you is I failed. I failed out of junior college because I was having way too much fun with my cousins. And then I went on and had a bunch of teachers and professors and just human beings who really thought and saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And that theme kind of resonated across my career in the military, my career in banking and financial services, where I worked for Capital One, and one of my first jobs was to go out and do acquisition integration. Anybody know what that means? Well, guess what? I didn't either. What is that? That really is the nice way of saying we're going to go buy a company, and then we're going to make you feel good about buying your company and laying your people off. And that was done in Boise, Idaho. I was telling my colleague about it last night. It was probably the hardest job that I ever did in my entire life. Because I am a crier. I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad, I cry when I'm watching daggone Hallmark Channel, so there you go. So by that time I knew that whole acquisition integration was not for me. But what was for me was serving my country in the public sector. And so I've spent, the last 34 years of my life, which I'm just ecstatically just proud of, the last 4 of which has been for one of the most amazing presidents and vice presidents that I have ever had the privilege to work with, and I've worked with a lot of them. And that is serving as your Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and now leading HUD. The journey, like a lot of us, has been a lot of mansplaining. Sorry, men. I just had it happen to me the other night, someone explaining to me who I needed to go talk to in Congress. I'm like, thank you very much, I appreciate your input. Done that. But you really need to. I'm like, got it. Already got that Congress member taken care of. So all that's to say is that for my young women in this room, and the more seasoned ones of us, each of you you're gonna have those challenges. You're gonna have the people, men, women, and everyone else who's going to tell you what you cannot do. That those jobs, you need to have all the criteria. No, you don't. What you need to do is have the willingness to say, I may not have all 10 items on that list. I have 5. I'm gonna try. Because every time you try, you open yourself up to new experiences. And for my young men, it's the same way. There is nothing that you cannot do. Just know that there is a whole generation of us that believe in each and every one of you. So the world we live in 26 days, that's all I have to say. 26 days, my friends. We live in a time when democracy is challenged. Can you hear me better? There you go, I'm a little bit vertically challenged. Democracy is challenged. People don't believe in climate change. Can I grab my water? Sorry. Oh, I don't know whose that is. I don't mind drinking behind someone. I have 2 boys. There's nothing you can do to hurt me. Trust and believe. All those things are real. The intersection of what we have experienced this week with our hurricanes, that is real. We talked earlier today about looking at how climate change impacts our lives as human beings, how it impacts migration, how it impacts our economy, how it impacts our national security. So for my fellow professors, as we challenge our students, challenge them to think across disciplines. Challenge them to think of interdisciplinary solutions to the challenges that not only that we're facing today, but the ones that we're going to face in the future, the seen and the unseen. Challenge them to innovate. Quite often, I see students and interns. I take them all. If you have interns, I will serve for free. I'm just joking, sort of. But I see them asking questions and being very linear. Don't think linear. Think outside the box. I want you to come up with solutions. We, the collective we in this room, want that. So as we talk about solutions and moving forward, my call to action to everyone in this room is very simple. Be present. We didn't come here to spend 8 hours, as much as I love y'all. That's good Texas talk. We'll talk about all the universities I went to later if you just really want to know, or you can't Google me. But we did not come to this room to sit and not take action, to not be present with one another, to not look for ways, my fellow president, so I wasn't one, I'm just a professor, to not get our students involved, to not send them to forums like GlobalMind 2025. The flyers are on your tables. To not look to the rest of us in here to say, I have 2 seats for an intern, I don't mind taking them. I will look at you on LinkedIn, on Google, whatever your company website is. So as leaders in this room, especially in academia, let's push our people out. Let's get them involved in organizations such as GlobalMindED. For my philanthropic partners, you know, as much as we all, as the collective body, we love GlobalMind. I